Upon arriving, however, we found her guards unconscious and the blessed child gone. Now the kidnapper himself is here, angered and declaring himself blameless. Given the summons we received are at odds with reality, I would like to declare our neutrality in these proceedings.
He sat down. The Pope smiled widely, then turned to look at the Cardinal.
Your Eminence, might I trouble you to explain why you chose to deliver such a summons? Please face Mr. Rudeus when you answer.
Sounds like this was the Cardinal's dirty work, I thought. The Cardinal stood up with a gentle smile, then said,
I received a tip-off from the House of Latria. The message said that someone had been overheard on the street making troubling statements about kidnapping the blessed child.
The House of Latria, overheard on the street. Could someone have followed me home after my second visit to Claire's house? I hadn't noticed anything at all, but I did make a scene before leaving. She might have sent someone to keep an eye on me, to make sure I didn't try something. I suppose I had talked about kidnapping the blessed child out in the open. Anyone could have heard us. It could easily have reached the ears of a Latria servant simply by coincidence. The walls have ears, as they say, or in this case the streets. Nowhere was safe.
When I looked into the identity of the speaker, I found it was Rudeus Greyrat. The subordinate I sent to investigate claimed that Rudeus was abusing his relationship with Therese to get close to the blessed child.
According to the Cardinal, he didn't usually give much credence to rumors. Roadside banter wasn't out of the ordinary, and the Temple Knights didn't have time to go chasing up every nasty comment they heard on the street. But I had demons among my closest friends, and I was close to the grandson of a pope who pushed for accommodations for demon folk. On top of that, I'd also severed my ties with the Latrius. I cut a fairly fishy figure, for sure. Then, right after I quarreled with the Latrius, I'd gone straight for the blessed child. That distracting the blessed child's guards so that I could kidnap and murder her lay clearly within my capabilities was the clear deciding factor. I had both the ability and the motive.
I decided to move against him first.
I see. But, Cardinal, that doesn't match up with the testimony from the Cathedral Knights. There's a significant difference between kidnap and murder.
I imagine the messenger I sent got a little carried away in relaying the...
His face was placid, but the latest facts told me all I needed to know about his intentions. He'd wanted to set me up for attempted murder of the blessed child, then make it look like the Pope was directing me behind the scenes. Too bad for him. His precious Temple Knights got knocked out, and now everyone could see that I didn't want to kill a single one of them, let alone the blessed child.
Very well. Before we come to you, Sir Carlyle, let's hear from Rudeus. What say you?
I was silent for a moment, taken aback by the sudden question. After a second of consideration, I realized I didn't need to lie. I had nothing to be ashamed of. I admit I did let my mouth run away with me and raised the idea of kidnapping the blessed child, but that was only a heat-of-the-moment comment. My companions immediately rejected the idea, and it never went anywhere.
Then why did you seek out the blessed child?
I sought my Aunt Teresa's support in resolving a family disagreement with the Latrius. I realize it may have appeared that the blessed child was my target.
Oh? But if that is the truth, how is it that you now have the blessed child as your hostage?
The Pope's voice was friendly, even though his questions felt like a cross-examination. It was a voice that said, "Don't worry, just tell the truth and everything will be okay." As I said before, I took an important hostage to guarantee my own safety. Only after the blessed child gave me her consent, of course.
Is that true?
It is. I need to look into Rudeus's eyes to see he was guiltless.
She looked around the table, and the Pope and the Cardinal casually averted their eyes. Must be hard having that much guilt to cover up, I thought.
If that's the case, why did you knock out the Temple Knights? Surely you could have resolved this through words.
I was trapped inside a barrier without warning and subjected to a ridiculous trial while all my protests fell on deaf ears. They told me they were going to cut off my arms. There was no reason not to resist. Though I guess I didn't need to knock all of them out. Leaving Therese standing and reasoning with her might have been the smarter move. Had Therese been there when the blessed child came out and saw me do nothing, she might have listened. No, that was stupid. I had no clue the blessed child would show up, and the vibes back there had not made it feel like we were going to resolve anything with words. A trial where the verdict was already decided. I'd experienced something like that in my past life, too.
I see. Well then, what, then, is this family disagreement all about?
I saw Claire twitch, and something dark welled up within me. The memory of her petty narcissism played in my mind. I could put up with anything she did to me. What I couldn't tolerate was what she said to Aisha, what she said to Zenith. She'd been horrible to Geese as well. My mother, that woman, was abducted by the Countess and kept away from me. She intends to force my mother, who cannot even speak, into marriage with an unknown man, with no regard for my mother's own desires. She even intends to force her to bear children. When I objected, the Countess used cowardly means to kidnap my mother. Then, when I went to her demanding answers, she feigned ignorance of the whole affair. Everyone at the table looked horrified. Therese and the other Temple Knights had reached for their swords, their faces grim. The Blessed Child frowned slightly. It looked like I'd got the upper hand here. That's all I have to say. Any further words escaped me, so I left it there. I'd communicated my anger. Everyone was looking at the Latriuses, Carlyle and Claire. The pair of them were looking at Zenith with pity in their eyes. Zenith, in turn, stared blankly up at the ceiling.
All right, Lord Carlyle, Lady Claire. Everything we've just heard seems to put the blame for this affair at your feet. What do you have to say for yourselves?
The two of them exchanged a fleeting look. What were they plotting? I didn't get the sense from the Cardinal, at least, that he was going to come to their rescue.
My wife acted on her own initiative. I know nothing about it.
He'd thrown her to the wolves, his own wife. Maybe that wasn't so insane, though. If Claire really was like this all the time, and Carlyle had grown steadily more fed up with her, maybe he decided this was the time to dump her. I knew that no matter how much chaos Eris caused with her outbursts, I'd never do that to her. I wasn't about to claim that after years of marriage it was absolutely unthinkable that I'd get fed up with any of my wife's more annoying qualities, but I knew I'd never turn on them or abandon them. I'd never have gotten married in the first place if I didn't believe that. Seeing Carlyle do it kinda got under my skin. I remembered something Cliff had said ages back. In Millis, when a marriage was arranged, the bride's family provided the dowry. In exchange, the groom swore to protect the bride's house with their life. The definition of house in these circumstances was a bit unclear, but still, I couldn't believe Carlyle was really going to abandon Claire here.
I am the head of the family, and shall therefore take full responsibility. I wish to make it clear, however, that this was not a decision made by the whole Latria family.
Mushoku Tensei Volume 21, Megonete cast by Artale Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit artale.ai and use promotion code ARTALE to activate your account. Now, enjoy the story. That little addendum is how you show you have a conscience, huh?
I see. Lady Claire, what say you?
Claire didn't answer. Her mouth was clamped shut in a hard line. She looked like a sulking child.
Silence will be taken as an admission of guilt. In that case, we find Lady Claire responsible for this affair, along with Sir Carlyle as her collaborator. Lady Claire shall face punishment, and Sir Carlyle shall bear responsibility for her actions. Are there any objections?
Something was wrong. This was too easy. We'd missed something crucial. It was like we were just going through the motions to reach a foregone conclusion.
No objections.
No objections, echoed the others, nodding. Claire's face was gray, but she kept her composure. She's not going to say anything? No excuses? But then, her half-assed excuses would just make me sick anyway. I was happy so long as Zenith came home with me. After this, I'd never go near the Latrius again. I wouldn't let Zenith, or Aisha, or Norn go anywhere near them either. It was over.
Are you satisfied with that, Rudeus? It was not our intention for things to happen this way. We never intended any offense to you, nor to invite the enmity of Sir Orsted. I hope that we can remain friends.
He was still smiling that friendly smile. I looked at the Cardinal. He kept up a smile of his own, but when our eyes met, he swallowed. and I saw he was sweating.
And then, naturally, we want to avoid conflict with Sir Orsted. I don't know how he came to foresee the resurrection of Laplace, but I will not spurn any ally in that fight. We shall have to seriously consider this proposition to allow the sale of these so-called demon figures at a later date.
Over the course of this last exchange, I worked out the broad strokes of what was going on. The one behind the kidnapping accusation and all the rest was the Pope. I was pretty sure the leak came from his agents. He'd stolen the Latrias' name so that the Cardinal would be provoked into making an attempt on my life. Either that, or he had an agent in the Latria household and the information came from there, but the details didn't matter. He couldn't have known for sure that the Cardinal would act. From the Cardinal's perspective, though, I was a definite problem. A follower of the Dragon God who'd shown up as a friend of the Pope's grandson. I'd caused problems for the Latrias, who were in the Cardinal's faction. Then that family squabble served as my cover to get close to the Blessed Child. To him, I probably looked like an assassin sent by the Pope. You couldn't blame the guy for thinking he had to take me out. Had he only sent a few of the Temple Knights because he'd underestimated me? Or because he'd seen this coming and wanted to be ready? Had the Pope known I wasn't going to kill the Blessed Child, or did he not care either way? If I died at the Temple Knight's hands, well, no loss for him. I was Cliff's friend, but I wasn't one of his people. Throughout all of this, he hadn't done any of his dirty work directly, nor had he ordered me to carry out the kidnapping. He was confident he could get through even an inquisition with the Blessed Child, and if all else failed, he could pin it all on Cliff. Plus, even if Orsted did show up later, he could claim he'd just been caught in a demon expulsionist trap. Maybe he'd even use it as an opportunity to repair relations with Orsted. And now this conclusion. In the end, the Latrias took the blame for the whole affair. I'd bet money that neither the Pope nor the Cardinal had given a damn who ended up on the chopping block in all this. The only reason the scapegoat ended up being Claire was because I was angry at her. All I wanted was to get back at her. The Pope could declare victory, knowing he'd struck a blow to the Cardinalists via the Latrias. The Cardinals' faction was the only loser here. I felt like I'd been played, but you know what? I was going to get Zenith back and have my revenge on Claire. At this rate, I'd have the mercenary company up and running soon, too. I had zero reason to object. Sounds good to me.
Very well. Precedent dictates that Claire Latria be sentenced to 10 years imprisonment for inciting national mayhem.
It was?
You object, Rudeus?
You said 10 years?
I did. Claire Latria kidnapped a family member of an associate of the Dragon God. Her actions also led to an attack on the Blessed Child.
But, okay, yeah, but...
Her behavior has insulted powerful individuals and incited mayhem. Were you not such a good-hearted man, the Blessed Child would likely already be dead. 10 years is merciful when you consider it in that light.
Really? But okay, maybe that's fair. This did blow up enough that all the big shots ended up gathered here to sort it out. Claire probably wouldn't be the only one to suffer for this, but still, 10 years imprisonment, that was a long time. 10 years back, I'd barely just broken up with Eris. A really long time. I couldn't do much about it, though. Claire was the one who decided to play dirty. This all started because she'd abducted Zenith.
No objections? Good. Then this provisional court, presided over by at least 3 bishops and 3 senior captains, finds Lady Claire Latria guilty of inciting public mayhem and recommends 10 years imprisonment. I will leave it to you, Sir Carlyle, to arrange a formal trial for her.
No objections. No objections. The Cardinal, the Archbishop, and the Knights all solemnly intoned their agreement.
Good. Sir Bellamont, as our neutral party, I request that you take the Latras into custody. Once a formal sentence has been passed, the outcome shall be conveyed to the rest of you.
The Pope looked over at the Cathedral Knights and raised a hand. Bache and 2 others stood up at once, then came trotting around the table toward Carlyle and Claire. As they passed Therese, she frowned for a split second. One of the knights pulled out a set of manacles and put them on Carlyle. Carlyle allowed his hands to be bound without a word, then followed the knight from the room of his own accord. "Claire?" She didn't move. She half stood up, but her whole body was trembling. Her expression hadn't changed, but her shoulders and her legs were shaking.
All right, Lady Claire.
I.
The cathedral knights approached her. She was going to be arrested and thrown in a cell. It did leave a bit of a bitter aftertaste in my mouth, but it would also mean one of my problems tidied up. Suddenly my eyes met Cliff's. He was staring at me, his expression all panic and confusion. What was that about? I mean, sure, there were parts of this I didn't like. This kangaroo court-style setup issuing a 10-year prison sentence, for one thing. It felt a bit vindictive. These are the rules your people play by, though, right? I thought of how the Temple Knights had tried to pull a similar stunt with me. This conclusion is all above board so far as you guys are concerned, right?
Come on, Lady Claire.
Besh reached slowly toward Claire like he was trying not to provoke her. Claire looked down at her hands with fear in her eyes. She looked like she wanted to leave her body. The next second, something went ramming into Besh. He staggered backward, his heavy armor clinking. Without missing a beat, he sank into a fighting stance, moved to draw his sword, then froze. What stopped him wasn't Claire. Standing there, between Claire and Carlyle, was Zenith. She had put herself between Claire and Besh. She had both her arms outstretched, blocking the way. Her face was still blank as she faced him down, but the hostility was clear in her actions. She was protecting Claire. I was even more at a loss than before. Why would Zenith protect Claire? Was it a spur-of-the-moment decision? She had reacted to her surroundings before this, though, and whenever she did, it was always for the sake of her family. Was she reacting automatically, protecting her mother without understanding what her mother was trying to do to her? I had to be missing something. I never had the right answer in this sort of situation. It had been just like this with Pax. Now I came to think of it. Get it together. If you think this through clearly, you might see what you missed. There was no time. That was the issue. Besh would push Zenith aside and take Claire away in seconds. Should I stop him? Could I do that without working out the consequences first? Shouldn't I get more information before I acted?
Stop this, please.
While I hesitated, another voice called out, bringing Besh to a halt. A small figure came pushing past to stand in front of Zenith, the guy who'd been looking at me reproachfully for a while now. It was Cliff.
This isn't right! Ganging up on an elderly woman, pinning all of this on her. St. Millis will punish us for this.
How dare you! A mere priest presumes to speak for St. Millis and defy the just ruling of the church.
You think this is the will of St. Millis? A husband spurning his wife while their child stands alone to defend her mother against a mob coming to carry her away?
What child? She's a grown woman, and she's out of her mind.
Age has nothing to do with it. A parent is a parent, and a child is a child.
Glowering, the cardinal turned to his own servants, the Temple Knights, a silent order to silence the troublemaker. But the one whose eyes he met was Therese. Cliff looked to her as well.
Captain Therese Latria of the Temple Knights Shield Company, are you not also this woman's child? Did St. Millis not say a knight does not forsake loyalty, be they faced with any manner of trial? Yet at times, bonds of love must be held higher than those of loyalty. Do you not consider your own mother unworthy of your love? In all the years she raised you, did you never feel love for her? Do you owe her nothing?
Therese looked away, her face stricken. Cliff, his fury unrelenting, cast his eyes about the room. They came to rest on me.
And you, Rudeus. Is this what you wanted? I never thought I'd see you stoop to taking hostages, then to ensnare your own grandmother and have her locked up in a cell. Are you happy with this?
I didn't reply. Cliff's argument was a bit off the mark. I hadn't taken the blessed child because I wanted to. And shutting Claire up in jail obviously hadn't been my idea. Besides, what Claire had done was wrong. That was a fact. You do something bad, well, there are consequences for that. And you can't get out of it by making a big emotional speech.
I know you had your disagreements with her, but in all your family quarrels up till now, you resolved them by considering the other's point of view. Norn told me all about it. After the awful way Norn treated you, you still went to her side when she despaired, without a thought for the past. This time, too, you tried to work things out. You consulted with your grandfather and Therese to try to reach a peaceful solution. After all that, can you truly say you're happy with this?
Okay, so Cliff had a few things mixed up. The only reason I wanted a peaceful solution was for the sake of the mercenary band and Cliff himself. It wasn't out of familial love. That was a quibble, though, and Cliff wasn't in the mood, so I stayed silent.
Answer me. Rudeus Greyrat, do you condone this or not? Your answer will decide my opinion of your character.
For some reason, that hit me hard. It actually hurt. Why was that? It hurts, because even I'm not crazy about seeing one of my family thrown in jail. It is Claire, though. It's not like she treated me like family. Claire was different. Claire was not my family. Something still niggled at me, though. I couldn't work out what it was, and until I did, I couldn't answer Cliff. Look, Cliff, I'll give you an answer, but first I want to ask Claire something. Is that all right? Cliff looked taken aback, but I didn't wait for a reply. Instead, I turned to Claire. There was fear in her eyes, but she met my gaze undaunted. Why did you take my mother from me?
For the good of my daughter and my family.
Did you really think marrying off your daughter in her current state would be for her own good?
Given the circumstances, I did.
Before I knew it, my hands had curled into fists. My jaw was clenched tight. How could Claire be like this? She must know that if she'd just said, no, I was wrong, she'd be off the hook. I fell silent. The whole table looked at me expectantly, as though I suddenly had all the authority. Wait, maybe I do. I'm still holding the blessed child's arm. From the start, this had never been a discussion amongst equals. Which is more important to you, your daughter or your family?
Both of them. Neither is more important than the other.
That irritated me. Why wasn't she trying to persuade me? She knew I was the one with all the power in the room. If I said we should forgive her, this whole thing would go away. Okay, maybe not entirely, but she'd be off the hook for the 10 years imprisonment at least. It's not like anyone died. We could settle for another punishment. Come on, get over yourself and just say it. Apologize.
You needn't go out of your way for me. I never asked you to save me. If I am to be punished for what I did for my daughter's sake, then so be it.
I was at a loss for words. What the actual you? Oh, screw it. This isn't going anywhere. Zenith had defended her. Cliff had defended her. Yet now she came out with this? I was done. If that's all you have to say, I think we're... Huh? I trailed off as I felt something jab into my shoulder. Looking around, I saw the blessed child. She had jabbed me with the hand I wasn't holding on to.
Rudeus.
What? The blessed child no longer wore her usual serene smile. Instead, her face was blank, but somehow unclouded, like a saint.
Spare her, Rudeus.
Why? I wasn't falling for this. I no longer had any intention of forgiving Claire. If nothing else, she obviously had no interest in working things out. The stupid old hag wanted total control over her daughter and resented her pesky grandson for getting in the way. She was like a child throwing a tantrum, flinging her toys around when things didn't go her way.
Lady Claire was truly thinking only of her daughter and her family.
Good intentions pave the road to hell. Thinking about others didn't mean anything if you didn't consider any viewpoints other than your own. If you were hell-bent on pushing what you thought was best on someone who didn't want it, you were better off minding your own business. Plus, what Claire was pushing was seriously awful. No one would want that.
Claire also considers you to be a part of that family, Rudeus.
Excuse me?
All of this was for your sake as well.
For me? How does all of this follow then? How did we end up here? I needed her to work with me a bit more here. She wasn't making sense.
Please, Rudeus, trust me. When I looked into her eyes, I knew.
Right, the blessed child's power. She could see your past in your eyes. So that meant Claire had to have some reason, not that I had any clue what it might be. Claire, care to shed any light on what the blessed child is saying? Because I'm not following.
I'm afraid I'm at a loss myself. I suppose even the blessed child must lie sometimes. I'm quite sure I never did anything for you.
There you go. Cliff, blessed child, you can try and cover for her all you like, but I can't back down after that. I do feel a little bad about it. It was time to put an end to this. I can't reconcile with her when she thinks nothing of me. Claire nodded, her gaze steady. Cliff stared at me in dismay. The blessed child looked sad. Teresa's eyes went to Claire, and Sir Belmont stood up. Zenith. I realized that Zenith was standing right in front of me. Her hand struck my cheek. There was almost no power in the blow. It probably wouldn't even leave a mark. What? For some reason, though, it hurt. I felt the place she'd slapped me growing unbearably hot. All of a sudden, tears were rolling down my cheeks. In the time it took me to realize what was happening, Zenith had moved past me. I turned and saw Carlyle, the man who had stood there manacled, watching all this run its course, then left. Because he was standing behind me, I hadn't been able to see his face, but there was a whole mix of emotions there. Worry, fear, regret. Zenith slapped him too. Just like before, the blow was limp. Afterwards, she kept walking, wobbling with each step. No one stopped her. Not the cathedral knights, not the temple knights, no one. It was like time had frozen around her. At last, she stopped in front of Claire. She raised her hand, palm out and ready to... No slap came. She cradled Claire's face in both hands, leaning forward until their noses were almost touching so she could peer into her mother's eyes. From where I stood, I couldn't see Zenith's expression. When Claire looked into her daughter's face, though, the effect was dramatic. First, her eyes widened. Then, her lips began to tremble, followed by her cheeks, her shoulders, then her whole body. The shaking spread right down to her fingertips. Then, as though triggered by the tremor, her arms rose up and gripped Zenith's hands tight.
Ooh, ah, wah.
The cry that burst out of Claire was something between a sob and a moan. She drew Zenith's hands up to her face, as though she was going to kiss them, and tears began to stream down her face. Then, perhaps, succumbing to the shaking, her knees gave way and she sank to the ground.
Oh!
A voice from behind me, just as someone ducked past. It was Carlyle, his hands still manacled. He rushed to Claire's side. Lowering himself down beside her, he said,
Claire, my dear, you need to stop this.
But Zenith...
Carlyle moved as though he wanted to embrace her, then remembered the manacles wouldn't let him. Instead, he lay his hands on top of Claire's, which still clasped Zenith's.
She's okay. You don't need to worry. She's okay.
Carlyle stood up. Claire's sobs echoed through the room. Carlyle looked around at everyone watching, then said,
I'm so sorry. I'll tell you everything. I only ask that you reserve judgment until you've heard me out.
At this, time moved forward again. I didn't think Carlyle had been addressing anyone in particular, but the Pope, the Cardinal, Cliff, Sir Bellamont, Therese, and all the keepers of Anastasia turned to look at me. The Blessed Child tugged at my sleeve with both hands. I'd let go of her arm. The jig was up. Fine. I collapsed back into my chair. My cheek burned where Zenith had slapped me. Chapter 6. For the good of my daughter and my family. From the day she was born, Claire Latria was vain and hard-headed. As a child, she never admitted to any wrongdoing, and she only apologized when it was dragged out of her. Her own mother, Rudeus's great-grandmother, Meredy Latria, told her, conduct yourself correctly. But this advice was gravely misguided. Claire, unwilling and unable to see her own faults, believed she had none, that her stubbornness was justified. But mistakes make us human. Claire took her mother's advice, however, and it made her into a harsh girl. Not correct, just harsh. To herself most of all. She started her education and made mistakes because that's what an education is in some ways. Rather than accept that, her standards for herself only increased in their rigidity and cruelty, and if she'd applied those torturous standards only to herself, fine. But that's not what happened. Nobody could meet her exacting specifications, and she made sure they suffered for it. Without tempering her stubbornness and vanity, her mother's advice had ruined her. She had these twisted virtues. She was tough, and so she pushed through every adversity. She was vain, and so made sure nobody ever knew when she was hurting, and she expected that from everyone around her. She just couldn't hear that she was wrong. Nobody liked her. To others, it looked like she succeeded effortlessly, only to then turn around and berate anybody who struggled at the same tasks. And she never apologized, not for anything. She was cold, pampered, and heartless. Some people saw through to the real Claire, of course. They recognized how hard she worked when no one was watching. But because she couldn't be vulnerable, recognition was all they could offer. Claire, these well-meaning individuals would say, I see the real you, but nobody else will. Still, she refused to change. She saw nothing wrong with her mother's words, nor with her own philosophy. This was working for her. Why change? By the time she came of age, everyone was sick of her, and no one would have her as a bride. The topic of marriage was broached on a number of occasions. She was the eldest daughter of the House of Latria, after all. But when interested noblemen met her and saw her hardness and her stubbornness for themselves, they ran screaming. "If I cannot find a husband, then I shall simply become a nun," declared Claire when she was 18 years old. She was a lady of the House of Latria. Becoming a nun was preferable to bringing shame on the family name by becoming an old maid. In Millis, it was a common path for young women in those days. There lived a boy named Carlisle Grands. Carlisle was a fresh addition to the Temple Knights who served as a member of the Sword Company under the direct command of Ralcan Latria, Claire's father. One day, Claire's father came home drunk. Ralcan himself was a rigid man. That was the only side Claire or her mother saw of him. It was therefore highly out of character for him to come home drunk. Out of character in the sense that it was incongruous, but not in the sense it was rare. Claire's mother knew the routine whenever he came staggering in. She removed his armor, gave him water to drink, and helped him to bed, so that the servants would only think him tired. She never told him off for it. She knew how stressful the job of a temple knight could be. He was unlucky on one particular occasion, however. Claire's mother had gone to visit her parents and was away from the house. So for the first time, Claire faced her father's failings without her mother there to protect him. She admonished him bitterly. "I can't believe you would do this. Aren't you the head of the Latria family? Was everything you taught me empty words to you?" Her father was drunk, but he was nevertheless shamed into silence that he had allowed his daughter to see him like this. Instead, the young knight who had accompanied him home spoke. This was Carlisle. "I can explain why the captain was drinking today," he said. "One of our knights was killed on duty. It was no one's fault, but we went out to drink to their memory. The captain only drank too much because he felt remorse for the death of his subordinate. I won't stand here and see him insulted for that, even by his own daughter." Claire didn't reply. She didn't know what to say. Her anger had disappeared. She took care of her father in silence. She gave him water and allowed him to lean on her shoulder as he tried to apologize to her. She couldn't support him alone, however, so Carlisle ended up helping her to walk her father back to his room, change him out of his armor, and put him to bed. Throughout the whole process, Claire didn't utter a single word. She knew she was in the wrong, but she couldn't bring herself to apologize to her father, nor to Carlisle. She was too stubborn for that. But Carlisle understood. He saw that beneath her sullen expression, she recognized her mistake. As he left, he said, "You're kinder than you think you are." At that time, Claire had no idea what he meant. All she knew was that this boy, perhaps a year or two younger than herself, had recognized something inside of her. After that, Carlisle began to receive frequent invitations to the Latria estate, and soon enough, he and Claire were married. Claire and Carlisle had 5 children together, 1 boy and 4 girls. Claire raised the girls as severely as her own mother had raised her. Their eldest son joined the Temple Knights. Their eldest daughter married a marquess. They were the perfect gentleman and lady, exactly as Claire had desired. She would have proudly presented them anywhere in Millis. Claire had the highest hopes for her second daughter, who was born a little later. This daughter was far more accomplished than the first 2 children. Everyone who met her was struck by her beauty and her integrity. She was Claire's finest work, her pride and joy, Zenith Latria. But Zenith left. She dashed all Claire's hopes, running away to become an adventurer, and then silence. Claire was apoplectic with rage. She cursed Zenith in front of her other children, calling her an idiot child who had made the stupidest choice imaginable, and warned them to refrain from emulating their sister in any way. It was the first time she had ever let her feelings show so openly. The daughter she'd pinned her highest hopes upon had chosen the grubbiest life she could imagine. In all her life, this was the shock that hit Claire the hardest. The fate of their third daughter, Sala, similarly diverted from Claire's wishes. Sala married a baron, but he became embroiled in a power struggle which he lost. Sala was killed in the aftermath. Millis's healing magic was highly advanced, and so such deaths were rare. Her death was one of those rare flukes. The family put the reputation of the House of Latria on the line to ensure that Sala's killer met a poetic end. Claire mourned her daughter. She mourned as any other mother would have. And while she mourned, her fourth daughter, Therese, chose a life Claire wouldn't have chosen for her. She joined the Temple Knights. Claire cursed her fourth daughter as she had her second. "You little fool! Do you really think you have what it takes to be a knight? If only you had listened to me and learned to be a proper lady, I would have found you a good husband. You could have been happy." Therese retorted, "Did dying in a power struggle make my sister happy?" It had turned into a terrible fight. Claire turned Therese out, telling her, "You will never set foot in this house again." Never for a moment did she think that she had done anything wrong. Zenith and Therese had both left, but someday they would crawl back for forgiveness. She earnestly believed that. 10 years passed. No word came from Zenith, but Therese did well in the Temple Knights and was promoted to captain of the Blessed Child's personal guard. Claire thought the Knights only handed the position to Therese because the Blessed Child was also female. She wasn't wrong. Therese was an excellent administrator and commander, but no more than an average knight. Even so, at all the parties Claire accompanied her husband to, she heard people saying, "The Latrias are really something. Everywhere you look, they're moving up in the world." Claire tore into others, but she was equally hard on herself. When she did realize that she had made a mistake, she never apologized, but she was capable of changing her mind. Now that the daughter who'd made a terrible mistake was now being celebrated, she was left with no choice. Claire forgave and reconciled with Therese. The words she used when she faced her daughter, however, were not an apology but a haughty, "I forgive you." Now, Therese was accustomed to dealing with difficult people on a daily basis as a Temple Knight. If not for that practice, and if her older brother had not physically stepped between them, there would have been another fight. It was a few years later when Paul arrived at the Latria estate to ask for their help. A magical calamity had struck the kingdom of Asura, the Fit-Toa displacement incident. Paul was the captain of a search and rescue team hunting down those who had gone missing, and he had come to request the assistance of the House of Latria. When Claire learned that Zenith was among the missing, she agreed without hesitation. She persuaded Carlyle to contribute both gold and men. Her hope was that they would find Zenith quickly and she could tell her, "Do you see now? Do you see what happened because you didn't do as I said?" But Zenith stayed missing. A year passed, then 2, and there was still no sign of her. Zenith's husband, Paul, wasted away. He made no effort to conceal his suffering, and although he had a young daughter, he began to drown his sorrows in drink. Claire was the first to decide that something must be done for Norn. She decided to take her infant granddaughter from her father and foster the girl herself. She would bring her up as a proper young lady. That, Claire thought, was the most important thing. Carlyle was against it, however, and so she ultimately failed to tear the girl away from her father. As the days went by, Claire could do nothing but watch Norn and stew in her own frustration. Then one day, Paul reformed himself. Therese reported that his eldest son, Rudeus, had shown up, beaten him, and made him mend his ways. This sparked within Claire a flicker of curiosity about this Rudeus. This flicker was doused quickly. When the boy didn't present himself to the Latria family, she decided that he was cut from the same cloth as his father and wrote him off in disgust. It then came to light that Paul had 2 wives. His lover Lilia and her daughter Aisha came to Millis. Claire belonged to the Millis church and thus could not countenance the perversion of keeping 2 wives. But Paul was not an adherent, and Claire knew it was foolish to try and press her own religious convictions on another. She permitted the 2 girls to call upon her a few times a month and instructed them in the Latria family customs, proper etiquette, and painstaking rituals. Claire felt she was doing the natural thing by teaching them the correct way of living. Norn was constantly sulking because she was unable to measure up to Aisha. Claire despised the girl's attitude. She always gave up and refused to try at things she could undoubtedly achieve with sufficient effort. But Norn, afraid of being second to Aisha, stopped trying. Claire saw what was happening and told Norn that there was no need for her to be the best. She needed only to live up to the reputation of a lady of the House of Latria. This was Claire's version of motivation. Norn did not improve. Claire tried every speech she could think of to motivate the girl, but nothing worked. Meanwhile, she was infuriated to see Aisha, the bastard daughter, teasing Norn. Her anger made her unreasonable, and she was cruel to both the girl and her mother. In the end, both Aisha and Norn left her house as disappointments. Another few years slipped away without any news of Zenith's safe return. Claire was left with only the memories of her time with her grandchildren. Her eldest son and eldest daughter's children came of age one by one. They all turned out splendidly. Young people she could present in any situation with surety and confidence. There were no longer any children in Claire's life, and she stopped seeing much of her grandchildren. She wondered how Aisha and Norn fared. The two would soon come of age. Now that she thought about it, they were the only two grandchildren who hadn't turned out as she'd hoped. Perhaps that was to be expected of Zenith's children. She wondered how on earth Zenith had raised them, and then it hit her. She hadn't raised her own daughter. The displacement incident had occurred just after the girls had been born. Norn had been 1, maybe 2 years old. Zenith had been robbed of the chance to know her daughters as a real person. Norn had been raised by a single father. The displacement incident could explain why Aisha had never learned to properly respect her father's legitimate daughter. Zenith had been wayward, but she was clever. Once upon a time, people had called her the model of a young lady of Millis. Adventurer or not, things could have been different if only Zenith had been there to teach them. Claire missed Zenith so much that sometimes it made her soppy. She wanted to see her daughter. Claire knew she would probably have nothing but barbed words for her if they did meet, and that Zenith would likely cause nothing but grief for her, but even then, that might be worth it. That was when it happened. That was when the message came from Rudeus. Zenith had been found. Her memory was gone, and she had lost her mind, but she was alive. The letter from Rudeus was brief and to the point, stating the facts of where Zenith had been found and her condition. It was so economical that it skimmed right past Paul's death. Rudeus wrote that he planned on getting Zenith treated, but he made no mention of bringing her home. Claire wrote back immediately. She wanted to see Zenith more than anything. Several more years passed, during which Claire searched for a way to cure Zenith. She went around the doctors and healing magicians of Millis, and visited the library of the Millis church time and time again. She even stooped to studying texts written by demons in her research. It was unpardonable, but Claire was convinced that there must have been other cases like Zenith's in history. Then finally she found one. She had no idea if what she read could be trusted. The case described was suspect, unbelievable, and utterly nauseating, but a method did exist. There was precedent for a cure. The cure she found was not a demonic one. She read that once there had lived an elf who suffered from a similar condition to Zenith. This elf woman lost her mind, but eventually returned to herself after having intercourse with dozens of men. Claire could scarcely believe it. It couldn't be true. She could certainly never try it. But as she continued her research to try and find the basis for the story, she found that the elf woman really existed and that she was still even now sleeping with hordes of men. Claire didn't know what to do. Could she really attempt such a treatment? Wouldn't Zenith hate it? And yet, it may be her only chance of recovery. While she sat paralyzed by indecision, Rudeus brought Zenith to her. Just 3 of them came. Zenith, her son, Rudeus, and the bastard daughter, Aisha. It had been 3 years since Claire sent her letter. Claire was unaccustomed to communicating with faraway places, and so she believed that Rudeus had come as fast as he could. First she thought she would tell him how much she appreciated him coming so far, then make her introductions. After that, she would inquire after Zenith's recovery and ask how he intended to proceed with treatment. If there was time, she would ask after Norn and Aisha, but the moment she saw Zenith, her plan went out the window. When Claire entered the room and saw her daughter's face, she went straight to her, close but never close enough. She saw Zenith's unfocused eyes, and then, feeling as though her heart would burst from her chest, she sighed impatiently and called for Ander, the family doctor. Ander was looking after Claire, whose health had been poor lately. He had counseled her on treatment for Zenith. Claire, after finally seeing Zenith for the first time in so many years, knew it was rude to ignore Rudeus, and turned around to give him her attention. Then she saw who was sitting on a corner of the sofa, a woman in a maid outfit, with dark brown hair, and a face Claire would never forget. Right then her attention was more caught by the outfit, though. A maid outfit? Aisha, how lovely to see you again. What capacity have you come here in? Oh, I'm Lady Zenith's. I'm helping look after her. Claire couldn't help the harsh words that slipped out of her at this response. Look after her? In other words, Aisha was here as Zenith's maid, And if that were true, there was no possible excuse for Aisha to sit while her master and mistress stood. Claire merely reprimanded her to remind her of common decency. Rudeus, however, came between them. As well the boy should. Claire herself was the one who had abandoned propriety. Now that she saw Rudeus for the first time, she noted his strong resemblance to Paul. She couldn't help but see Paul's face in his. Paul, the drunk. Paul, who'd led Zenith to this state. All her resentment toward the boy's father came rushing back. Perhaps that was why, in the conversation that followed, Claire's less admirable qualities reared their heads. Her vanity and stubbornness took the reins. She brushed aside the dim awareness of her own faults and dug in. Rudeus, on the other hand, was a forthright young man. He met her spiteful comments with well-reasoned and direct arguments. His frank candidness made Claire revise her opinion of him. After that, their conversation proceeded according to her expectations. First, they spoke of the progress of Zenith's treatment, then Norn's situation. She did not ask about Aisha, still embarrassed over her earlier outburst. Rudeus's knowledge of basic Millis customs was a little lacking, but he seemed aware of his responsibility as head of his family and was taking Norn's cultivation seriously. Claire began to see him in a different light. He was young, but he took his role seriously. He was an upstanding young man. At least, that was how he looked to her. She had no notion of how important the role of the dragon god's subordinate was. Her knowledge of military matters was lacking, but close ties to the monarch of Asura had to imply a certain degree of status, even if a new line had taken the throne. With greater status came greater responsibility and greater accomplishments. Claire gleaned that Rudeus was a figure of far more importance than she had previously thought. This was Zenith's son. The thought called up a complicated mix of irritation and pride within her. Unfortunately, he'd be a problem. The course of treatment she had planned for Zenith was sure to cause talk. Handing a woman over to a procession of men to have their way with her was an unforgivable sin. She tried to ask leading questions to probe Rudeus's likelihood of accepting her plan, but in the end only made him explode with rage at her. Claire saw that his love for Zenith, even in her current state, was undiminished. But of course it was. Nothing else could have made him brave the years-long journey to bring Zenith to Millis. Claire's probing also confirmed that he hadn't tried the treatment she planned and didn't know of its existence. She wondered whether she ought to tell him about it, to explain that while it might strain credulity, it might get Zenith back. It was even possible that if she explained it all, he might give her his consent, but something gave her pause. This was a young man with a bright future ahead of him. Word had it that he was a close friend of a priest in the Pope's faction. She had also heard that the Pope's grandson had returned to Milishan recently himself. Given the length of the journey, she wouldn't be surprised if he and Rudeus had made the journey together. Claire herself had no interest in church power struggles. But what if Rudeus began to work on behalf of the Pope's faction? What if he made his name in Militian, not as a Latria, but as a Greyrat and follower of Orsted, a member of the Papalists? The treatment Claire was planning could ruin his prospects. If it got out that he had done such a thing to his own mother, it would be a scandal. Every citizen of Millis would gossip behind his back. It would be impossible for him to remain in the country. So Claire debated with herself, was it right to tell him? Was it right to burden him with it? No, he had to know nothing. It was better for him to stay ignorant about his mother being forced to sleep with all those men. Better he had nothing to do with it at all. It would all be Claire's decision. Rudeus wasn't a member of the Latria family, and so he had nothing to do with it. That, she thought, would be best. She never considered giving up carrying out the treatment. She had waited 20 years for this, for the opportunity to see Zenith again, to speak to her. Thus, Claire set her plan in motion. She would bear the disgrace of this by herself. She deliberately antagonized Rudeus, then disowned him from the Latria family. Finally, she had a servant abduct Zenith. At this point, however, her plan ground to a halt. Zenith was brought back to the house. She was an adult now, and she was getting older, but she was still beautiful. She was still a desirable lady. Most of all, she was Claire's daughter. Claire couldn't bring herself to force Zenith to sleep with some untold number of men. It wasn't right. It couldn't be. At the same time, though, it wasn't right to expect Zenith's son to continue to care for his mother in her current state. Claire even made excuses to herself. If Zenith could speak, she would ask Claire to cure her. Surely. The way she justified herself disgusted her. She wanted someone to stop her. She was about to do something terrible, but she couldn't stop herself. She wavered, agonized, and fought with herself. She spent every day in Zenith's room, her face buried in her hands. Zenith sat there blankly, not doing anything. Every now and then, though, she would display a human reaction, and Claire would be racked with indecision once again. In the end, it was Carlyle who put an end to her suffering. Carlyle heard a summary of events from Therese, then got the rest from the family doctor, Ander. He learned what the treatment was, and how Claire was agonizing over whether to go through with it. When he learned of the unforgivable act his wife was considering, he went to her, and he was kind. "Before you go through with this," he told her, "first, allow the blessed child to see her. If they knew Zenith's memories, that might shed new light on the situation. It might be what steeled their resolve, or maybe it would be the thing that would finally allow them to let go." Carlyle submitted an application to have Zenith's memories read by the blessed child. He wielded all the influence he could muster as a senior captain in the Temple Knights to procure an audience, while keeping Zenith's name off the application. He made sure Rudeus didn't catch wind of it. The blessed child, who officially never examined personal memories, would do exactly that for them that very day. As Carlyle and Claire quietly escorted Zenith to the church headquarters to see the blessed child, Rudeus abducted her.
And that is how we ended up here.
Claire's eyes were red, and Carlyle's face was lined with sorrow. There were a few different reactions from around the table, a few grimaces, a few frowns and folded arms. Therese had her hands over her mouth in shock. The blessed child smiled as though she'd known the details all along. Cliff's face was unreadable, which made me wonder if maybe he'd heard this story before somewhere. It all made perfect sense now that I'd heard it. What Claire had planned was unforgivable. She hadn't gone through with it, but the fact she'd even thought about doing that to her own daughter was enough. I wasn't about to forgive her for it, and it sure as hell wasn't a cultural difference or acceptable under Millis church doctrine. I wasn't sure if it actually constituted a crime in Millis, but from the reactions I was seeing here, she definitely succeeded in disgracing the House of Latria. If I'd abetted her, it hardly needed to be said that I'd have kissed goodbye to any hope of doing business in this town, and that was why she disowned me, why she tried to do it all herself. She struggled over the decision alone and planned to take all the punishment alone. The thing, though, was that Claire had her facts wrong. Was that, treatment? Was it from 200 years ago by any chance?
It was. Around 200 years ago, it said. There was a woman in the same state.
And that woman was driven away from her village for what she did?
You know the story. Does that mean you tried it?
Of course not. The other case Claire had found had to be Elena Lee's. The story Claire knew was a pretty generous massaging of the facts, of course. Yes, Elena Lee's had been in the same state as Zenith, but after a few decades, she got better. It wasn't until later that she turned into a total slut. To be fair, it's in the nature of old stories to get mixed up as they get passed down. It makes sense that it got twisted in the retelling. I didn't try that treatment, but I did meet that woman and heard her story directly. I guess I hadn't put Elena Lee's in my letter. I'd kept way too much secret back then.
See.
Her shoulders slumped like she'd been deflated. In her face, though, I thought I saw something like relief.
Everything I did was for nothing then.
Yep.
I see.
If she'd told me her plans way back on day one, I wouldn't have gotten so mad. "Whoa there, Grandma," I'd have said, laughing her off. "I know the woman you're talking about, and you've got the whole story wrong. How could you think that would work?" Yeah, I mean, probably. You should have told me.
If you hadn't known any other way to make her better, would you have been able to resist trying it?
I didn't reply. I didn't know how to answer. I couldn't just say no. If Elena Lee's had told me screwing around cured me, I might have done it, but not right away. I would have tried anything else first. But a few years had passed since I met Elena Lee's. If nothing had worked, how would I feel now? After dwelling on it for years, who knew what decision I might have reached?
To think, you knew, and still of all the foolish.
Me, though, I felt great. Everything Claire had said and done finally made sense. When she said, "For the good of my daughter and my family," Claire had been telling the truth. And now here we were. and this huge production was because our falling out got picked up and used to gain the upper hand in a power struggle. Claire did her best to keep everyone else unaware of her plan, to her credit. I guess she wanted to protect the Latria family from disgrace. Therese, and the uncle and aunt I still hadn't met, but she'd gone about it all wrong. There just wasn't another side to this. There had to have been a better option. All kinds of better options. Even so, she'd done it for Zenith. And for me... So, Cliff, when did you first hear about all this?
This morning. I ran into the three of them when they arrived at the church this morning.
And you didn't try to stop them then? You know all about Ellen Elise, don't you?
The only thing they told me about the treatment was that it was something no decent person would condone.
All right. I guess that follows. After all this time confiding in no one, Claire wasn't about to just spill the entire thing to Cliff.
I meant to tell you today, but then... I'm sorry.
This was Cliff we were talking about. I was prepared to bet he really laid into Claire and Carlisle. What you're doing is wrong. Return Zenith and apologize to Rudeus. That sort of thing. Then Carlisle, cowed by Cliff's anger, confessed. Cliff probably felt uneasy at something no decent person would condone. Maybe they made him swear confidentiality. That was why. Here, in front of all the others, he'd tried to argue with me instead of saying any of this out loud. He thought that if he could just stop things here, if he could get it through to me that Claire really had Zenith's best interests at heart, there'd be the chance for reconciliation. I couldn't exactly say it was a good plan. Still, it was drafted out of consideration for Claire and Carlisle. It was Cliff through and through. Just as I was feeling good about things, Cliff looked around the whole room and said,
All right, allow me to ask again. We heard that all of this came down to a mother trying to help her daughter. Do you still mean to claim that ganging up on this woman to use as a scapegoat in your schemes is the will of St. Millis? This incident was all a big misunderstanding. Fortunately, not one person was killed. This affair all started with a mother's love. I admit, time was wasted and losses were sustained in the confusion that ensued. Some of you have suffered temporary discomfort or injury. But is any of that so important? Can't we let bygones be bygones? Can't we forgive this woman? Show some mercy.
Cliff looked at me.
Rudeus, the power to decide is yours. You have suffered the most here, and you have won the right.
I let go of the blessed child ages ago, but she was still sitting beside me, and still smiling like nothing she'd heard had surprised her, like she was a real smarty pants, seeing through it all. That sounds fair to me. There was still some bad blood between us, but I'd make time to have a good long chat with Claire later. If she was the person I thought she was, we should be able to sort that out if we talked it out. She'd probably do something to irritate me along the way, but that was a normal part of knowing people. However, I have 3 conditions. First, I want the blessed child to look at my mother's memories and see if she can fix her. I addressed this to the Cardinal, but it was the blessed child who replied.
Of course I will. We already had it scheduled, after all.
She still had that knowing attitude. Had she known she was going to examine Zenith today? Did she let herself get kidnapped because she knew, then manipulated this meeting? It was plausible.
However, I do not have the power to restore lost memories. I doubt that it will be within my abilities to cure her.
Even so, I'd like to try it. No objections from you, Your Eminence? The Cardinal made a noise of assent. He seemed to be in a good mood, probably because he saw his allies, the Latrias, were getting out of this more or less scot-free. Second, in exchange for my letting all this go, I expect your full and unqualified cooperation with the dragon god Orsted.
It shall be so.
He was a given, but the Cardinal nodded too and muttered,
Fine.
I might even be able to demand the Ruigerd figures. Part of me wanted to try it, but I decided it was better to wrap up on a positive note. Things were fine for now. If I got greedy, it'd bite me in the butt later. Now my third and final condition. I asked to be reinstated as a member of the Latria family. This was how the Millis incident drew to a close. The first to react was Therese. Her hand went to her breast and she gasped. Carlisle lowered his head, looking ashamed, and Claire started crying with big hiccuping sobs. She was saying something that could have been thank you and could have been I'm sorry. It was hard to tell through the sobs. As Claire wept, Zenith laid a hand on her head. Chapter 7. What is owed? We put our agreement in writing. It spelled out everything that had happened, the whole sordid affair, and it said only Rudeus's good character had kept the blessed child from harm. It placed the blame with the Millis Church and stipulated that in accepting liability, the Holy Millis Church would make restitution by comprehensively supporting the activities of the dragon god Orsted and Rudeus Greyrat. The contract wrapped up with something along the lines of, the pertaining activities may involve demons, but shall not extend to any act that violates the laws of Millis. The two principal culprits, the Pope and the Cardinal, signed it like it was no big deal. The nervous sweat rolling down the Cardinal's face was honestly kind of adorable. The contract was signed, my hostage returned, and the gathering concluded. Apparently, the decision reached by our provisional court would later be reviewed by an evaluation council that would assign liability to all the relevant parties. Whatever that involved, I bet the Cardinal would find a way to wriggle out of it. Chasing down the guilty wasn't my job. If they weren't disciples of the man-god, they weren't my enemies, just annoyances. Also, taking out the Cardinal wasn't the same thing as wiping out the demon expulsionists. I'd gotten what I came for and sorted out the attack. In the garden. Call that a win. Zenith and Cliff and I set out for his place. On the way, Cliff blurted out,
I'm sorry.
Wait, what are we talking about?
When I thought about it, I realized it's my fault Zenith remained captive as long as she did. I wasn't careful enough. Everything worked out in the end, but I feel like I just made it worse by thinking I could smooth everything over.
Isn't that your whole shtick? You use a bunch of mistaken assumptions to make a big, logical speech, but in the end, everyone ends up happy. This is who you are as a person, Cliff. I'm not holding it against you. Let's try to learn from this, so we can do better next time.
Yes, of course.
Cliff was feeling down, but personally, I was more worried about what this was going to do to his career. Wendy was waiting for us when we got home. Just Wendy alone.
Welcome. Oh, welcome home.
I was struck by sudden unease. Were Aisha and Geese all right? When the contract was being written up, I'd tried to casually ask after them, but the Cardinal and the Temple Knights had basically said, don't know, don't care.
Miss Aisha and Master Geese are both safe and sound.
My paranoia evaporated. The two of them came up from the basement.
Big brother, you're back! And oh, Mother Zenith.
The two of them told me what had happened. They got word that Claire and Carlisle had left the house early that morning to go to the church headquarters, so they headed to the church headquarters themselves to try and tip me off. By the time they got there, though, it was already too late. The Temple Knights were in an uproar. Claire was at the church. I was there too, trying to get close to Therese. They put two and two together and assumed we'd run into each other and clashed. At that point, they remembered the orders I'd given them and went back to Cliff's house. They got our things packed for a quick escape, then hid in the back of the house. They planned to get out of the city when night fell.
Those Temple Knights showed up a few times, but I sent them on their way this time.
She was doing her job properly now, a small mercy, but the Cardinal had tried to get to Aisha and Geese. What a nightmare.
Anyway, you've got Mother Zenith back. Does that mean?
Yeah, it's all over. I told Aisha and Geese everything that had happened. After I finished, Aisha sighed with admiration.
Big brother, you're like... totally the hero or something. Everyone is just screwing everything up then. One day, bam, call to adventure. A stranger comes to town, then he mysteriously returns where he came from.
Don't be stupid. I'm not handsome enough to be the leading man. We arranged to take Zenith back to see the Blessed Child the following day. Carlisle and Claire came to Cliff's house by carriage to get us, and the five of us, Cliff included, set off together. Inside the carriage, I had a chance to talk to Carlisle. He seemed majorly cut up about everything and kept apologizing to me. I wasn't interested in pointing fingers. Maybe he could have handled things a bit better, but hey, people make mistakes. The important thing is that you learn from them so that you can do better in future, right? Besides, I couldn't claim to be doing too well on that front. Who was I to start harping on at other people about their screw-ups? Carlisle talked a lot, but Claire didn't say anything. Jammed in with the other 4 of us in the carriage, she stayed silent the whole time. What's she thinking? Should I ask? I wondered. I was still going back and forth on the question as we arrived on church grounds. After going through some official procedures, we were granted entry into the inner sanctum for the audience. We were escorted to a room that seemed to be the Blessed Child's quarters. A transparent barrier was set up in the middle of the room, just like when I'd met with the Pope. There were also 2 chairs and a window. 6 guards stood at attention under the dim lights. Therese wasn't there. Maybe she'd been transferred. Regardless, it looked like the examination would happen with the Blessed Child's fanboys standing by. They didn't seem hostile, just a little tense and unwilling to meet my eye. I'm not looking for an apology, guys. It's your job, I get it. Besides, I beat them all unconscious. They'd started it and I'd finished it. We were even. They were probably going to see some professional consequences too, so I was happy to let things go. I hoped I could leave here with us on friendly terms, actually. I didn't like the idea of these guys holding a grudge against me.
Shall we begin?
The Blessed Child and Zenith sat down opposite each other. Dust gently supported Zenith's head, positioning her so she was still, her eyes open. Then, the Blessed Child leaned forward and gazed deep into Zenith's eyes. It reminded me of an optometrist's exam. Whoa! The Blessed Child's gaze shone as she gazed at Zenith. It literally shone. I can't think of a better way to put it. Faint threads of light connected them, eye to eye. The otaku were all oohing and ahing over her.
That's our Blessed Child. She really is blessed.
That light didn't appear before. Was she putting on a show, or does it take effort? Maybe it was like fire magic. As your magic gets stronger, the fire gets hotter and brighter. Maybe this phenomenon only happened when she was pushing her power to its limit. She'd switched from basic cable to fiber optic. Claire clenched her fist over her heart like she was praying. I tried to pull myself back on task. Right now, all of Zenith's past was being laid bare. The Blessed Child might even be able to see the memories that had been devoured by her magic crystal prison in the depths of the labyrinth. If Zenith's memories revealed the cause, maybe they could shed light on a solution. Just one clue. One little clue might be enough for one of my brainier friends to think of something. Orsted or Kishirika, maybe.
Oh.
The Blessed Child shivered. Dust released Zenith's head, then gently touched the Blessed Child's shoulder. Does that mean download complete? The Blessed Child stood up, her eyes still wide open. She was looking straight at me.
Rudeus Greyrat.
Yes?
I have seen the memories of Zenith Greyrat.
What did you see?
Until the displacement incident, she lived in the village of Buena in Fitoa, where she lent her services to the local healer while raising Aisha and Norn.
We're going all the way back to that? Okay, no, fair enough. She's got to go through everything in order or it'll sound like she's just talking at random.
After you left, not a day went by that she didn't worry about you. She worried that you weren't eating properly, that you weren't doing your laundry, that you were chasing after lots of different girls.
Oh wow, sorry Mom, least I didn't cheat on anyone. The Rudeus continent was a peaceful land, up until it was conquered by the bits below the waist. It even managed to hold off invading the unsuspecting land of Sylphi for a while. Hard as that might be to imagine for anyone who knew of Rudeus's, troop movements over the past few years.
In the midst of her worries about you, her memories cut to white.
The displacement incident, I remembered that moment. Most people, though, were displaced before they realized what was happening, or why. That's what happened to Paul, and I heard the same was true for Lilia.
For some time after that, only darkness.
Some time?
Yes, it was as though she remained deep in a dreamless sleep as a great deal of time passed around her.
So she had no memories of that period, in which case she must have been sent straight into the labyrinth by the displacement incident. The chances of that happening had to be tiny, but it wasn't impossible. A random teleportation to anywhere in the world had a small chance of burying you inside of a wall. If you did it on purpose, set up an entry and exit circle in advance and so on, that would mostly eliminate that kind of risk. The displacement incident had really blown our lives apart. It was apparently the aftershock of Nanahoshi arriving in this world, but that didn't really matter. It was all over and done with now. If humanity hadn't made teleportation circles taboo and managed their use responsibly, if they'd only done that much, they'd have weathered this crisis without panicking. I'll tell Ariel that next time. Ariel will get things worked out if I write up a report on teleportation for her. Wait, how did Geese find Zenith then? He told me he went asking around and heard she was in the depths of the teleportation labyrinth. Hold on.
Then she had a dream.
I refocused. He's not even here right now. You can question Geese later. A dream?
A dream. She began to feel like she'd been turned into a rag doll.
A rag doll? Still, it was a pleasant dream, the blessed child said, then closed her eyes. Her voice flowed on, as though she was watching a film play on the inside of her eyelids.
She dreamt of living an easy life in a house she didn't know. She and Lilia sat in the sun and tended to the garden. Paul was gone, but Rudy and Sophie got married, and then they had a baby. But then, well, like father, like son. Rudy went off with Roxy, then it was Eris. They just kept coming, but they all seemed happy at least. Even Sophie. Norn moaned a lot, but she still went to school and kissed me goodbye every morning. Aisha and I are getting to be such good friends. Did you know she likes flowers? I tell her I like apples and daffodils, and she turns to me and says, Zenith. You can call me Mum, I told her, but Lilia looked a bit unhappy at that. I guess she wants Aisha to see her as Mom too. Roxy is teaching at the local school. Norn says all the kids love her. She must be pretty old given she's a demon, but oh, well. Rudy adores her, so I guess I shouldn't worry about age too much. I got to meet Eris for the first time. It was plain as day how much she loves Rudy. She came to see me when no one else was around, her face bright red, and said something like, I'm still figuring stuff out, but I'll do my very best. Honestly, I just burst out laughing. I told her to try saying it to Rudy instead. There was no point being all formal around me. Then Eris went bright red again and bowed her head. It was the sweetest thing. She's always so bold, you know.
Those were Zenith memories of the past few years. They didn't quite match up with mine. Norn hardly ever spoke to Zenith, and while Aisha talked to her in the garden frequently, Zenith never replied. But does that mean that in Zenith's eyes, did it feel to her like she was talking to everyone, and they were replying?
Then there's Rudy's children. Lucy is the most precious little thing. She's still so little, but she's doing her best to be a big sister. She listens so carefully to everything Sophie says, and she practices her magic every day to show Rudy. With me, though, she doesn't act so tough. She says she's not as strong as her mama. She's hard on herself. I told her she has nothing to worry about. One day she'll be able to do it all, and even if not, she'll find her own talent. After that, she said she'd do her best. Oh, she's so sweet. Lara really likes me. You know, she was talking from the moment she was born. She calls me over every little thing. Granny, Granny, she says. And next thing I know, Leo comes over saying, Miss Zenith, help. Miss Lara wet herself. Lately, she climbs up on my knees and we sit in the sun with Leo and talk about the countryside around the house or about their daddy's hometown, that sort of thing. Aris loves breasts, just like Rudy when he was little. Whenever I pick him up, he grabs at mine and he looks so pleased with himself. I suppose even the breasts of an old granny like me will do. He's a little bit bad, just like Paul and Rudy. I told him if he's going to make all the girls cry like Rudy, he has to make sure they're all happy in the end too.
I realized my eyes were hot, tears were streaming down my cheeks. Lucy hardly ever went near Zenith, and Lara couldn't talk. More than half of the scenes the blessed child described were just Zenith's delusions, hallucinations playing behind her empty eyes. But the world she saw was so kind.
Oh, I almost forgot. Rudy started working for this really amazing guy, the dragon god, Orsted, he's called. One of the 3 demon slayer heroes and a distant apprentice of the dragon god Urupine. He's supposed to be super strong and super scary. Everyone seems terrified of him, but he doesn't seem so bad to me. I think deep down he just wants to make friends. He's hung up on Rudy in particular. He keeps coming to see how our family is getting along. I talk to him sometimes, but he doesn't seem very used to talking to people. He gets all tongue-tied. He's a good person, though. He teaches Lucy tricks to help her with her magic when she's struggling. Though they're a bit complicated, I don't think she understands him very well. Once, I asked if he wanted to hold Laura. He was so nervous about it. But he was very careful when he took her. He's not so keen on Leo and Aris, though, I think. The other day he made Aris cry, then left without greeting Eris. I wonder what sort of work Rudy is doing for this man who's so strong and yet so kind. Whatever it is, I'm proud of him. I'm sure Paul would be too.
How much of that is true? Orsted almost never comes to the house. Is he coming by without telling me?
Rudy's grown up into such a wonderful young man. Norn and Aisha are grown up too now, and Sylvie had her second baby. Lilia was so worried, saying now she had that on top of looking after me. How silly. Obviously, the children come first. I'm going to visit my mother, so I'm leaving Sylvie to you, Lilia. Okay? Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I used to be an adventurer, you know. We're going with Rudy and Aisha and Rudy's friend, Cliff. I'm getting all excited, thinking about going on a trip with Rudy. Mother has gotten so old. She's nothing like how I remember. I thought she'd yell at me for sure, but instead she comes up to me saying, Zenith, oh Zenith, and looking all weepy. She was worried I was hurt or unwell, so she brought a doctor to see me. I mean, as you can see, I'm in perfect health. But Mother does like to worry. She brought the doctor in every day. She was always so hard on us. But now she looks at me like she might cry. She doesn't scold me at all. She comes by so often because she's worried. Oh, Dad came too. He's grown out his beard. Can you believe it? He never used to wear it like that. When I asked him about it, he said he let it grow because he got promoted. It looks so awful on him, I have to laugh.
I shot a glance at Claire and Carlisle. Claire had her face buried in his chest while Carlisle stroked her hair. His eyes were brimming with tears.
The only thing is, Mother doesn't get on with Rudy at all. Rudy hates people looking down on him and telling him what to do. He and Mother got in a fight. I wish they'd find a way to make up. Then Rudy went and backed Mother right into a corner. Paul was always like that when we fought back in Buena. Rudy really doesn't pull his punches. Well, I'll just have to get them to make up.
The blessed child's eyes opened. She collapsed back into her chair. The otaku rushed to her side, one with what looked like hot towels, another with a glass of water. One started massaging her shoulders. It was like she was some ancient empress or something.
My apologies. That was all I saw. Did you hear what you wanted?
Using that power really drains her, huh? I guess it would. She'd read through all Zenith's memories, downloaded them into her own brain, then her brain had converted the whole thing into a little simulated Zenith monologue for us. Having all that information rush into your brain at once had to be exhausting. For once, I thought maybe I should join the otaku. She deserved that shoulder rub. Yes, thank you. I still didn't know how to fix Zenith, but now I knew how she'd felt after becoming like this. Just knowing that made coming to Millis worth it.
It may not mean much, but she is happy now. She knows that Paul is dead, and she understands what is happening around her.
She sure does. She understands a lot more than I ever imagined. It all still felt a bit dreamlike, and the blessed child's voice had lent it this fairy tale quality. But, I mean, she knew how many kids I had, and her description of their personalities had been pretty solid. Except for Lara, maybe. Lara did like Zenith, though. Maybe from Zenith's point of view, it looked like she was trying to communicate.
There was one more thing I learned. Zenith. I don't know how much she sees, but she can read minds.
Read minds?
Because of her current condition, she doesn't always interpret what she reads correctly. And I think she may be filling in the parts she can't read with her own stories.
She beckoned to me, gesturing to me to bring my ear to her mouth. The otaku all immediately covered their ears and turned away. I leaned in toward her. She whispered.
She is a blessed child.
I nodded slowly. I'd known from the start that it was likely she was cursed, and I knew all too well that a cursed child and a blessed child were, in essence, one and the same.
If this gets out, things will get out of hand again. I recommend you keep it safe.
No question about that. I'm a follower of Orsted. I'll protect her no matter what.
Total commitment. That's who you are, isn't it?
I knew two things now. The first was that Zenith had power. She could read minds. It wasn't clear how much she could read, but it probably wasn't killing her. It was more like she didn't know how to communicate what she saw. No immediate danger. I could relax a bit knowing that. The second was that something was up with Geese. Some of what he'd told me didn't fit, and honestly his behavior throughout this whole incident had been a bit off. Going to the Latria estate even though he knew they favored demon expulsion, then blindly following Claire's orders to bring Zenith out into the open. I needed to talk to him soon, today if possible. Blessed child, I'm really glad we met. I'd like to thank you somehow. I still didn't know how to get Zenith's memories back, or rather, how to get her back to her old self, but I'd learned that things were nowhere near as bad as I'd feared. She was conscious, just dreaming. That meant that one day she might wake up, and even if she didn't, so long as she was happy like this, maybe that was okay.
You are very kind. In that case, I do have 2 requests. May I make them?
Go ahead.
Will you give me that bracelet?
Bracelet? I looked down and saw Orsted's bracelet shining on my arm.
Yes.
See. Thing is, I can't take this off. Isn't there something else?
Anything will do, so long as it identifies the bearer as a follower of Orsted at a glance.
So long as it identifies the bearer as a follower of Orsted at a glance. Does she mean what I think she means? You want to join Orsted?
I do. I would prefer to live past 30.
Fair enough. That's right, her destiny is weak. She's fated to die unless something changes. She wasn't in the best shape, but she didn't seem especially sickly either. That left assassination as the biggest worry. Considering her power and the sheer number of schemes going on in the Millis church, that was the likeliest cause. If she were under Orsted's protection, though, the Cardinal and the Pope would find it a lot harder to move against her. Still, it wasn't a guarantee. Heh! All right, then let's upgrade it to a guarantee. Okay, I'll bring you something in the next few days.
Oh, thank you. With that, I might even make it to 50.
She'd seriously help me out at every turn. I wouldn't bring her a meager mark of the dragon god. I'd summon a guardian beast for her. What about the second thing?
I want you to get Therese off on a lighter sentence. Unless we do something, she's going to be demoted and sent far away.
I mean, doesn't she kind of have it coming? Not only was she just following orders, but she couldn't even carry those orders out.
That's not unfair, but you must understand, Rudeus. Her loss to you was a rather humiliating defeat for the Cardinal. If she is sent away, she will be killed, and I want her in my guard.
I could see how the Cardinal might kill her out of pure spite when she wasn't useful anymore, but she stuck to her role as his henchman, and this is what happens to henchmen who fail. Still, I couldn't deny she'd done absolutely everything she could for Zenith. Death was a tall price to pay for following orders and being manipulated. All right?
Thank you. May I have your signature?
One of the fanboys brought a document over to me. They were on top of everything, those guys.
I do look forward to working with you in the future, Sir Rudeus.
And that's the story of how the Blessed Child became a follower of Orsted.
Rudeus!
We were waiting for the coach in a side room when Claire addressed me. Her face was as stony as ever. That was just how she looked. Unless that was anxiety I was reading in her face.
This is far from an appropriate place to discuss what I have to say, and I'd hoped to talk to you when things had calmed down somewhat, but you are sure to only grow more busy as time wears on. May we speak now?
I nodded. Is she mad at me for having 3 wives? 2 was bad enough, but 3. The Millis Church will never stand for such a thing.
It's regarding the mess I caused.
Okay. Huh. So it's not about the wife thing. She wants to talk about herself. Fair enough. She wasn't about to come chew me out for my... Mushoku Tensei Volume 21.1, cast by Artale Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit artale.ai and use promotion code ARTALE to activate your account. Now, enjoy the story. Life choices after what she tried to pull, that would be ridiculous. Duh. Her expression remained firm as she went on.
I know that what I tried to do was unforgivable.
Yep. It might have been for Zenith's sake or whatever, but her treatment plan was way overboard. If she'd gone through with it, well, let's just say we wouldn't be chatting as amicably as this.
I want you to punish me.
Punish?
Yes, I stole Zenith from you, and I tried to do something utterly inhuman to her. I should be punished accordingly.
Can't you just apologize?
What would that solve? Sins must be punished.
I saw where she was coming from. If sorry made everything better, there'd be no need for the police. Pretty much everyone who'd contributed to that mess had received some sort of punishment, but not Claire. And Claire herself wasn't satisfied with that. Okay then, what kind of punishment do you think you deserve?
You could beat me with a whip or a staff or cut my arms off. You could even kill me. I don't care.
That's a bit much. I didn't want to become known as a grandma killer. Plus, Zenith would be so mad at me.
You heard what Zenith said in there. You saw how self-righteous I was, how little thought I gave to anyone else. You saw how she trusted me like a baby, and I was going to throw her into hell. Fools like me don't need to be pitied, only to be crushed by the hammer of justice.
Her hands were clenched into fists and shaking. So that's what she heard back there. It sounded a little different to me. Zenith forgave Claire. I don't think she knew what Claire planned, but she knew that Claire was suffering over some decision, and she knew it related to her. That was why, when she saw Claire trying to take all the blame herself back at the trial without anyone standing up for her, Zenith had forgiven her. Then she'd slapped Carlisle and me, but not Claire. Okay, maybe I'm twisting that logic a bit far. That's not how it went down either. Maybe it was right that Claire received some kind of punishment. Claire herself seemed to want punishment more than forgiveness anyway, and she wasn't going anywhere until she got it. Fine then. Well, okay. If you insist. Claire looked at me nervously. Sorry, but if it's all the same to you, I'm going to use this to my advantage. I want you to convert.
You mean to your religion? You want me to worship demons?
Crap, that wasn't the right word. Not convert. I really don't want you joining the Roxy cult. How the heck do I explain this? Oh well, I guess I can spell it out for her. No, sorry, that's not what I meant. You don't have to leave the Millis church. I mean, I want you to leave the demon expulsionists.
The whole of the Latria family?
Just you would be fine with me. One of my wives is a demon, so I'd rather you didn't call her filthy. Also, I'd like you to recognize my religion and keep your opinions about my family to yourself. Claire didn't reply. And one more thing, if you ever end up facing that sort of decision again, talk to me about it, okay? I have the power to solve most things. At least, I like to think so. Claire stared at me, shocked, but she nodded.
Very well.
She didn't look convinced. She probably wasn't sure if she'd actually been punished. Neither was I. I basically listed off everything I wanted from her, and she interpreted it as a punishment. She nodded. Even so, I guess she decided that if this was my judgment, she'd go along with it.
From this day forth, I, Claire Latria, shall be a demon integrationist and do everything in my power to assist that cause. I will trust in you, Rudeus, and make no comment on your religion or your educational methods, nor shall I permit such words from any other.
Thank you. Just don't overdo it, okay? Pushing your thoughts on others never goes well.
I understand.
If I could get the old bird to be a bit more flexible, then I could rest a whole lot easier. That way, I could know for sure that she wasn't going to start any fights with my wives or daughters. She was all obedient now. But what's the saying? Vows made in storms are forgotten in calm. When we met again, or rather, if we met again, I really didn't want to get into another argument. That's all I have to say,
Thank you for your kindness.
she replied curtly, then nodded. Could you be any worse at apologizing? I thought. Honestly, right, so back to Cliff's place. I would probably have to show my face at the Latria estate later, but first I would deal with Geese. I had serious questions about this trip and the last time we ran into him. When I thought back, I realized that the guy had a real knack for showing up at just the right moment. I was fascinated. He was going to explain that trick to me. I'm heading out to go find Geese, I said to Aisha and Zenith as I went to leave.
Big brother, hold up!
Aisha called out, rushing over to stop me with her hand outstretched.
Look at this.
In her hand was a letter. It was sealed with wax, and on the outside was written Rudeus.
Andy said that as soon as you left, Geese came by and left this.
Aisha explained. I took it without a word. A letter, right at this moment. Oh, I had a bad feeling about this. I broke the seal and began to read.
Rudeus, hey boss, if you came back to the house from talking to the blessed child and you're reading this letter, well, you probably worked out what's happened.
You have, yeah? Worked it out, I mean.
There's no way you haven't, right?
If you haven't, I really messed up by writing this, but what the hell? I reckon you've got some questions, right, boss? Like, how come I knew where Zenith was when there was no way I should?
How come I took Zenith outside just at the right time? This is going back a bit, but the time we first met was like that too.
Quite a coincidence. Me just running into you like that in Doldia Village, well, how'd I do it? There's some stuff even the mighty S-ranked adventurer Geese just shouldn't be able to do. How about I tell you? It was all thanks to the man-god's instructions. Everything I did, I was following the man-god's advice. Basically, I am what you'd call a disciple of the man-god. I was pulling one over on you, boss.
Well, surprised?
Are you thinking I knew it? Or are you pissed off?
Yeah, you're probably pissed.
Ah, well, that's only fair. Just so you know, though, I've been hearing this God's voice since I was a kid. That voice got me out of some tough scrapes and a few near-death situations to boot. I'm weak. I can't get by on my own. That voice was my savior, you know. Wasn't it the same for you, boss? The man-god helped you out when you came back from the demon continent. He brought you together with old Rougeard, then made sure you got your hands on the demon eye. He got you out of that cell and saved your little sister's life. It was the man-god who told me where to find Zenith, too. All of that. He did it for you, boss. You're a traitor. What, did you have a little falling out? I know the man-god isn't benevolent. All the advice he gives is just so he can use us for his own ends. We're like toys to him, honestly. I guess you think you're too important for that. Really got under your skin, huh? But betraying him, smashing everything up, don't you think you went too far? Okay, so he used you, but we owe him everything. That's the only way this all makes sense. That's how I saw it after my hometown got wiped off the map. The man-god manipulated me, then he wiped out my home. And he laughed about it. Told me all about how he played me. Of course I was pissed off. Like, what the fuck, dude? What is wrong with you? Get screwed! I let him have it, you know. But this is what he told me. After everything I've done for you, this is nothing. I reckon he meant to piss me off more, send me over the edge, you know, drive me crazy just so he could laugh at me. But when he said that, it hit me like wham! He's right, I thought. Thinking about what I owed him after all the times he saved my ass, and I figured I could just let it go. I mean, there's a little grudge underneath it all, but that's normal, ain't it? Anyway, I reckon you don't get it, huh, boss? You're probably reading this like, newbie, you are out of... And maybe it feels wrong to you, but not to... As far as I see it, you're turning your back on your debts, biting the hand that fed you. So sorry, boss, but I think I'm Team Man-God now. This time I was testing the water, seeing what you were capable of.
I got you right in my trap, then set the Temple Knights against you. Looks like you blasted straight through them in the end.
But hey, now I know what doesn't work. You messed up. You showed me every trick you got. I'm off to get enough allies so I know I can beat you. Then I'll be back to fight you head on, fair and square. It's war, boss. Plan your funeral. I don't hate you or nothing. We had a good time back at the prison, and I'll never forget our journey on the Holy Sword Highway. The labyrinth hunt, too.
That was the most alive I've felt in ages. I haven't forgotten any of that.
But that's as far as it goes. I don't hate you, but I don't owe you nothing.
I might have my little problems with Man God, but I owe him. Even when there's hard feelings, you gotta pay what you owe. That's a jinx for both of us, boss. Yours, Geese Nucadia.
I sprinted out of the house. Geese! I yelled as I ran. Geese. Geese was my enemy. I didn't know how, but he'd seen the magic armor. He said he was getting ready to face me. How? Next time he'd fight me fair and square. Could I trust that? It didn't matter. If that's what he meant to do, I would stop him. I had to kill him. I kept running all the way to the merchant district until I burst into the mercenary office. I immediately sent a message to Orsted about everything that had happened in Millis, the identity of the man God's disciple, and the contents of the letter. I wasn't going to wait for an answer. I was going after Geese. One problem. I had no way of knowing where he'd gone. Working alone would be foolishly inefficient. I went back to the church and had them put out a warrant for Geese's arrest. Then I went to the Temple Knights and demanded they send out search parties throughout Militian and the surrounding area. But Geese was a disciple of the man God. He could see the future. Geese, the guy who got to S rank with 0 combat abilities. There was no way in hell I was catching him. Chapter 8. The Traitor Gets Away. Geese Nuxal, the last of the Nuka tribe. Weak point, combat. Strong point, everything else. Despite being hopeless with a sword and a dunce at magic, he persevered and managed to become an S-ranked adventurer. That was the Geese who Orsted knew. Geese had always been consistent, regardless of my movements, and so I decided that he could not be a disciple, until now. That was how Orsted operated. He acted, watched how the world and the people in it reacted to him, then used that to identify the man God's disciples or whatever else he was looking for. Orsted witnessed how history progressed when he intervened and when he did not. But in all the loops, Geese's actions stayed the same. Geese lived his life as an adventurer and died as an adventurer. Regardless of what happened around him, he'd never done anything to arouse Orsted's suspicion. Orsted was good at sniffing out the man God's disciples. There weren't a lot of disciples like Geese, not much good in a fight, specializing in collecting information and manufacturing disinformation. But they did exist. They kept to the shadows, carrying out their plans in the darkness, lending a helping hand to other disciples at crucial moments. These disciples were always careful not to reveal their true nature. Orsted killed all of them. He had the time loops. With enough repetitions, it wasn't hard to work out who was a disciple and who wasn't. Geese alone was different. Geese alone failed to rouse suspicion. Orsted said that he had never been a disciple. No matter what Orsted did, he never acted like one. Not even when he was on the verge of being killed. But what that means, Orsted told me, is that he was a disciple in every loop, but hid it perfectly. Geese had never admitted to being a disciple in any previous loops. Orsted had suspected and killed him before, but even moments from death, even with a knife at his throat, Geese never cracked. I deluded myself that this was the normal course of history, hence these defeats. When we communicated through messages, I could always tell when Orsted was feeling sorry for himself. Orsted never so much as suspected that Geese was a disciple until my message. The man God had to be pissing himself laughing. It still hasn't clicked for him. I think Orsted didn't consider Geese to be all that important at first. That was all. Still, you did well, Rudeus, he told me. He was the man God's trump card, but no longer. There couldn't be any other disciples like Geese, though. At the end of the day, Orsted had the loops, and the man God didn't. The disciples acted more independently than you might think, anyway. Even if the man God wanted more disciples like Geese, acquiring them would be easier said than done, which meant Geese was more than likely the man God's last line of defense. The last disciple he'd kept hidden was Geese. I was still struggling to get my head around it. Orsted thought he was just a few turns from an easy victory. Now, yeah, he had the time loops. Even if we screwed it up this run, though, he could just kill Geese in his new Game Plus. Then he'd be one step closer to victory. The only thing was, if Orsted lost and went on to the next time loop, I only had this one. Game over. I want to win in this loop, I sent back, anxiety balling in my chest. Orsted's answer came, I merely meant he's already played his trump card. I snorted. Nice recovery, Orsted. A month had passed since Geese had outed himself as the man God's disciple. Afterward, I tried to find him. With the help of the Night Orders, we hunted for him up and down the Millis continent. The Millis Church and the Latrias went out of their way to lend us a hand, and the search was still ongoing. It seemed likely, though, that he'd gotten away clean. Needless to say, I wasn't only focusing on Millis. I got in touch with the Doldia tribe straight away and got them to put out a wanted notice for the Great Forest. I also notified Ariel and had her do the same in the Asura Kingdom, then asked Roxy to put in a request in the Renoan Kingdom. Even then, I was pretty sure we wouldn't catch him. From the south and northeast of the Central Continent, to the Begarit Continent, to the Demon Continent and the Divine Continent, it was a big world. There were lots of places my influence didn't reach. I didn't even know which way he'd fled. North? West? If he had contacts in the King Dragon realm, then that would mean he'd gone to the Demon Continent for sure. But after the death of the king, that place was a bit of a mess. The Demon Continent was broad, and Geese could blend in there. Maybe he'd used a teleportation circle I didn't know about, and then he could literally be anywhere. Geese, gone completely to ground. I felt ill. Honestly, I'd hoped we might catch him right away. Eventually, though, I had to accept that wasn't happening and start thinking about how to protect myself. In his letter, Geese said that next time he was going to fight me fair and square. Ridiculous. This was Geese. He lied as easily as breathing. What am I, a sucker? But then again, when I looked back, I realized that Geese could easily have killed me at any time in Millis. I let my guard down around him. I'd trusted him, but he hadn't done it. All he'd done was try to trick me into falling into his trap, and even after the trap fell apart, he still didn't move on me. Hell, he could have taken Aisha as a hostage. Aisha could defend herself with a sword and magic, so he might have thought that was biting off more than he could chew. But he'd had the opportunity, yet he didn't do it. Maybe I could trust the letter. Maybe, despite the fact that he was working on the man-god's orders, Geese himself wanted to fight fair and square. When you gotta kill someone, you better play fair, or you'll mess it up. That felt like one of Geese's jinxes, right? But I could be wrong. He might want me to think that while actually plotting the opposite. For all I knew, he was actually hiding out in a cupboard in Cliff's house, waiting to slit my throat with a poison knife when I fell asleep. Imagining guys in the walls isn't helping. I hadn't been attacked yet, which meant Geese hadn't gathered his forces in advance. He was probably out there somewhere right now gathering allies. He was coming for me, but not yet. That was what I tried to tell myself. In reality, I couldn't shake the feeling that I might get attacked at any moment. I was scared. Now, while I was busy hunting for Geese, Aisha had all the work setting up the mercenary band office under control. She chose a branch manager, recruited members, and came up with a plan for business going forward. Usually, everything needed my approval, but Aisha handled all of it. The Latrias helped take care of Zenith, so it took a lot of pressure off of her, but even when taking that into account, her efficiency was off the charts. She even thought of me in the middle of this. A month after Geese went missing, Eris arrived on dispatch to the Holy Country of Millis. She came via teleportation circle. She came to protect me. When she arrived, she was in full battle mode. Rather than normal civilian clothes, she wore the overcoat of a sword king and carried 2 swords. A bold announcement to anyone in viewing distance that here was a warrior they ought to know about.
Now that I'm here, it'll all be fine. I'll cut them all in half. Dumb move on Geese's part, turning against you. Wormy guy was right when he was all, "Aw, no, I'm no match for the boss, no way."
Hearing her chatter away, cheerful as anything, settled my nerves a bit. I wasn't going to get caught up in a battle and murdered this week, I consoled myself. On some level, I probably even believed it. Eris, I said, then wrapped her in my arms. That turned into fondling her breasts, at which point she beat me to death. As my consciousness faded, everything became clear. This had been Geese's plan all along. Thin. Anyway, joking aside, now that things had settled down a bit, it was time to get organized. First up, take Geese at face value. Assuming he really was assembling his forces to attack me head-on, there were 3 things I needed to do. 1. Find Geese. 2. Make the magic armor, and myself, stronger. 3. Hammer out a counter-strategy. When I saw it laid out like that, this is what I'd been doing all along. The only difference was that now, instead of 80 years, I had a significantly compressed timeline. Just a couple years to get good. And Geese was no average dude. Who knew what a fair and square head-on attack would look like coming from him? Would he come at me with numbers or with skill? According to Orsted, there weren't many out there who could beat me when I had my magic armor on. Even so, I'd learned firsthand the other day how numbers could tip a battle. If he could get 15 or so world-class warriors who could coordinate like the Temple Knights had in a fight, I'd be toast. He would need time to find people like that, though. There weren't a lot around. A year, maybe 2? I felt pretty confident it would take that long at an absolute minimum. Caught in a trap carefully constructed over the course of years, and with numbers on his side, even I couldn't squeeze my way out of it. The Temple Knights had a shot at winning for a sec there, and a disciple of the Man-God would be so much worse. I just had to stop him before it got to that. I'd travel around the world and make allies of his targets before he could get to them. If he'd already turned some of them, then I'd take them out before they could gang up on me. In every job going forward, no matter how minor, I had to look for enemies. I could narrow down Geese's probable location to either the Demon Continent as a whole and potentially to the King Dragon Realm if I really had to guess. Yeah, the Demon Continent seemed particularly likely. Ruffians like a Tofei would probably jump at the chance to fight when they heard Geese was trying to take me down. I'd planned to leave the Demon Continent till last, but it looked like we were moving it up the list. I could probably prioritize stopping by the King Dragon Realm, though. That was where Death God Randolph was, and he beat me in the souped-up version, too. He would make a solid ally. I wanted to get to him first. With that, my course was set. The mercenary band was still in its teething stages, but the Latrias and the church were here to back it up. So long as the 2 Millis church bid shots were bringing us work, the office should be able to stay afloat for the time being. I'd achieved the bare minimum of what I came to Millis to do. It was time to head back to the main office in Sharia. Then Orsted and I could hammer out the rest of our plan. But first, time to say goodbye. I called in at the Latria estate, where I introduced Eris and announced that I was returning home.
I see.
Even faced with Eris, who wasn't exactly a lady, she didn't betray any disapproval. It looked like she'd taken my words to heart. The only emotion I could detect was, faintly, disappointment.
I assume you will be taking Zenith with you?
That's right. I'd take my responsibility to care for her seriously.
Very well.
While Aisha and I were running ourselves ragged, Zenith had instead stayed with the Latrias for the past month. Claire said she'd been pretty active. Perhaps it was the nostalgia of being back in the house she'd grown up in. Apparently, she wandered around the estate and often went out to look at the gardens. She always wanted to be outside. She was as vacant as ever, but it was clear she was making the most of being back in her old hometown. Every man and woman in the Latria estate watched her with sadness. In the end, I didn't get to meet Edgar or Anise, all because of Geese. I asked Claire to pass along the message that I would absolutely set aside time to visit when I was next in Militian.
It pains me. I didn't get to lay eyes on Norn again.
We'll be back. Next time, I'll bring Norn. And my kids, too. Aisha... Well, I can't guarantee anything with her. Aisha and Claire's relationship hadn't gotten any better. Claire might have promised not to interfere with my family anymore, but Aisha's existing dislike for Claire couldn't be undone in a day. Claire, to the best of my knowledge, had basically only done what she thought was best for Aisha. A bastard should know her place, and let the legitimate children have the spotlight. A daughter of the Greyrat family should act like a lady. A maid for the Greyrat family should devote herself to the master of the house. Claire was trying to tell her to conduct herself in accordance with her station, but Aisha was all those things and also none of them. She had no set role, and Claire apparently had a lot of opinions about that. Even now, after making that promise to me, her gaze was harsh every time it fell upon Aisha.
I won't go on at length about it, as promised, but I worry about her future.
What? Oh no, I think she'll be just fine. Aisha was incredible and clever. She was almost too clever. She'd be all right.
I wonder... I cannot shake the feeling that she'll make some mistake she can't come back from.
There's not too many things you can't come back from. Besides, no matter what happens, I'll be there for her. Me, Sylphie, and Roxy. Eris can be pretty helpful too, for certain kinds of problems. Claire fell silent for a moment, then said,
If that is your opinion, I will say no more on the subject. Okay.
She looked like she had more she wanted to say, though. But hey, if she was worried about Aisha, that was fine. She was free to worry about whoever she liked. Just wait, we'll be back again soon enough. I'm sure Aisha will grow up a bit in the meantime, though I can't promise it'll be in a direction you approve of. Sure, there'd been some bumps along the way, but Claire wasn't a bad person. Not the nicest, perhaps, but she wasn't evil. I had no issue with bringing my wives and kids along for a visit. Next time, I'd make sure we'd keep it light and short. Show her we were all well, have a meal together, chat about recent developments, then see each other off with a smile.
I'm afraid that given my age, this may be our last farewell.
Our last farewell, Claire was over 60 years old. I wasn't sure what the average lifespan in this world was, but she was still in good health. But it was a 4-year return journey from Millis to Sharia. It wasn't a short trip. We weren't going to turn around and come back the moment we arrived. It would be a minimum of 10 years before we were reunited. Claire would be past 70. At that age, well, it wouldn't be a huge shock. I understood where she was coming from. Of course, in my family, we got around using teleportation circles, so in reality, travel didn't take long at all. I could tell her about that, but at the same time, I didn't like making it widely known that I was teleporting everywhere. It was safer to keep it close to the chest in case someone used that against me. Also, teleportation was a worldwide taboo. It was still used in some capacity by the Asura Kingdom and the King Dragon Realm, and probably by the royal family in Millis, too. But those were the 3 greatest nations in the world, and even they kept quiet about it.
Rudeus, thank you for bringing Zenith back to me.
She bowed her head to me. Apparently, she and Zenith had taken a carriage to see a play of all things the other day. Claire frowned through the whole thing, but one of the servants said it was a long, long time since the mistress of the house looked so happy. I'll be back soon. The words were out before I had time to stop them.
But
I will definitely be back. Claire smiled. The last thing she said to me, still beaming, was,
Zenith raised a good boy.
I went to say goodbye to the blessed child, too. I had 2 parting gifts for her. In the past month, Aisha had found a Militian artisan to make something for her. So, my first gift was an armband almost identical to my own. The usual design had a jewel-inlaid bezel, into which was embedded a stone. For this one, I made the stone myself with earth magic. It was black and glossy and engraved with the emblem of the dragon god. It ought to convey to anyone who saw it that the wearer was one of his followers. The second gift, a scroll. Orsted sent me to summon a guardian beast. I showed up with my gifts and had the blessed child sent for, only for the simp squad to come out to meet me. Therese was with them too. She dodged the transfer. Apparently a petition with my name on it had helped with that. Still, she got a demotion instead, so she wasn't commanding the blessed child's guard anymore. A new captain had been appointed, so now Therese served under her as a sort of deputy. As it happened, the new captain turned out to be a bit inflexible. The armband was one thing, but the idea of using unknown summoning magic inside the church was rejected as totally outrageous. But I made her do things my way. This is a gift from the dragon god Orsted to the blessed child, to thank her for her protection of his humble servant Rudeus. You, a mere guard captain, have no right to interfere. I was bad luck for these people's careers. The beast that emerged from the scroll turned out to be a silver owl. It was about 1 meter tall, smaller than Leo but fairly imposing, and its golden eyes had something awe-inspiring about them. It wasn't one of Perugia's spirits, but those were super rare. I doubt things like those show up much. Plus, this one was for the blessed child's exclusive use, so it was probably from a different pack. At least the hollow-edged beastie we drew had a divine vibe to it. I might have struggled to get the captain to sign off on a gigantic shiny black spider.
I'll be sure to take good care of it,
said the blessed child, her eyes shining as she gazed at the owl. She reached out to stroke it, and it closed its eyes in evident pleasure. The blessed child seemed enchanted that it had taken to her right after being summoned. That's the owl's job, actually. It wasn't a pet. She needed to relax and let it protect her, nothing more. Well, until next time, then.
Indeed. Stay well, Sir Rudeus.
On my way out, I bowed to Therese and the other keepers of Anastasia as well. I'd probably run into them again. Last up was Cliff. He seemed to be off to an incredibly good start here. After the other day, both the Papalists and the Cardinalists had taken notice of him. All sorts of stories were circulating about him, none of them quite accurate. Cliff Greymore talked down the Dragon God's right-hand man and saved the Blessed Child. Amidst the Pope and the Cardinals' feud, he spoke for justice and made them all see reason in the end. He's an example for all of us who follow Millis, a truly admirable young man. The funny part was that, as far as I could tell, the origins of the rumors were the commander of the Temple Knights and the vice-captain of the Cathedral Knights. Thanks to that, lesser knights and priests all trusted their reports and were convinced that the Pope had snagged himself an exceptional right-hand man. Also, perhaps thanks to those stories, Cliff was getting real work. Right now, that meant officiating weddings for important nobles. No matter what was going on in the world, a priest was never out of a job. Without getting into the details, Cliff had gotten plenty of real-life experience in Sharia. He was new, but he had plenty of skills, and his superiors viewed him as an exceptionally talented employee. Some people weren't so pleased to have him around, apparently. But hey, what are you gonna do? It's only natural that, when a talented new hire showed up, who also happened to be the Pope's grandson, a few people got jealous. Cliff would have to navigate that himself. I wasn't worried, though. Not about Cliff. Not the Cliff I knew. He'd come out on top of whatever the world threw at him. Just one niggling little thing. I'm off home then. Good to see you, Cliff.
You two, give my best to Lise.
You got it. I'll tell her not to cheat on you. Cliff, so far as I knew, still hadn't told anyone that he was married. All he'd said publicly was that his heart belonged to another. That wasn't like him. I did get why announcing his marriage to Elenalise might be a bit tricky, though. Even around these parts, all the adventurers knew the stories about Elenalise de Slut. There were now grizzled old veterans wandering around who'd spent their first time in her bed. Yeah, maybe it was for the best if Cliff didn't say who he'd married quite yet. It wouldn't hurt to wait until he was important enough that he could deal with a few people talking behind his back. He'd get there one day. I was sure he wouldn't take that secret to his grave. There was always the chance that proposals might start coming in the mail, though. And then there was Wendy. She was a servant and went home at night. But when a young man and a young woman spend some time together under one roof, scratch that. That was stupid. This was Cliff. Beyond even my twisted mind. No way was Cliff sleeping around after all his holier-than-thou preaching. Not when even I wouldn't go there. Welp, time to stop brooding about this or I'm going to jinx it. You do your best, Cliff. Keep it in your pants. St. Millis is always watching.
Don't worry, I wouldn't know where to find the time.
Cliff had been busy lately. He was good at his job, and people were coming to view him as the Pope's right-hand man. With his social capital climbing like this, there were even a few nobles cozying up to him. Really? You're hot stuff lately, I hear. You might just toss sweet little Wendy down on the bed and...
Wendy is basically my little sister. If you haven't touched yours, why would it even cross my mind?
I would never make a move on my sisters. The cheek! I assumed an offended expression, and Cliff looked down.
It's just... I really wanted to make it this far on my own merit.
If it wasn't for you, you think any of this would have worked out? Snark! I'd wanted to sound cool, but Cliff laughed through his nose at me. Point taken, geez. Cliff saved the day, but he also brought me here, and I'm the one who started trouble in the first place. There was a sense of fireman turned arsonist about it all. Still, he'd stayed true to himself the whole way through, and now he was getting recognized for it. In the end, Cliff's good fortune all stemmed back to Cliff.
Anyway, thank you, Rudeus. I'm getting noticed now, and it's all thanks to you.
No, thank you. You connected me to the right people in Millis, and now we've got the mercenary band set up here too. The sale of Rudeus figurines, on the other hand, that looked like it might take a bit longer. If I rushed things along, I could get us ready for sales immediately, but I didn't see us getting many customers. The mercenary band also wasn't totally settled in yet, so it also led to problems on that front. But hey, any other challenges we faced here were as good as solved. I just throw Cliff at them as another chance to prove himself.
Everything from here on out is all me.
You got it. Good luck. It didn't turn out exactly how I'd planned it, but I was pretty sure I'd fulfilled my promise to Elenolize too. Cliff would be okay. However things went with the other priests, he'd gotten off on the right foot, and it wasn't like there was a shortage of problems for him to tackle on his own. The feud between the Papalists and the Cardinalists was very much unresolved. I was excited to see Cliff achieve great things in his own way. And if it all went to hell, he could always come back and work for me. Try to take it easy, I thought.
Sorry I couldn't do much for you this past month.
Oh, don't sweat it. I had my battles. Cliff had his. If something happens with one of the man-god's servants, though, send me a message on the communication stone right away. I'll be there as fast as I can.
You got it.
With a decisive nod. I wasn't going to be there for every battle, but in an emergency I'd come running. He was my friend. All right then, Cliff. Stay well.
You too, Rudeus.
Keep in mind, though, I might end up back here again in a year.
Good. I should be ready by then to present Lees to everyone.
Oh, yeah. There's the business of Elenolize's curse. This can't be goodbye for long.
We've come a long way since you were the new kin at the university, huh?
Nah, you'll always be the same old genius Cliff to me. Cliff shrugged with a hopeless smile. And with that, my battles in Millis were over. The clash with the Latrias, then the machinations of the Millis church, and finally Gizi's betrayal. A lot had happened, but all these new experiences propelled me toward what I had to do. Get ready, Giz. I'm coming. Extra chapter. The Berserker Sword King and the Blessed Child. While Rudeus said his goodbyes to Cliff, there was another reunion underway. It took place at the church headquarters, in a serene garden where spring flowers bloomed in a riot of color. A lot of the trees were leaning slantwise after Rudeus's quagmire a few weeks earlier, but their vigor was in no way diminished. The Serach trees had finished flowering, and the Balta trees took their place and were now bursting with blossoms. Two women stood before the trees facing one another. One had blonde hair, the other red. They were both busty and fairly tall for women. Swords hung at their waists, and one wore a suit of blue armor. Therese and Eris. Also present, standing behind Therese like she was trying to hide in her shadow, was the Blessed Child. She fidgeted, rubbing her knees together and trying to look smaller. Oh yeah, and there were also a bunch of guys in blue armor standing around the three women, I guess. Think of them as scenery.
Come now, Blessed Child. Look, it's Lady Eris. Rudeus made time especially for her to see you.
But the Blessed Child just curled further in on herself and kept fidgeting.
Come on now. It's Eris.
Eris was her hero, stretching back into her earliest memories. The Blessed Child had been shut up in her white room. When something bad happened, she was brought out, sat before some grown-up who also didn't want to be there, and made to sift through their unsavory thoughts. That was her entire world. No room for freedom, no hope. Then, one day, as she was escorted from some place to another, she and her guards were ambushed. Surrounded by assassins, she was sure her life was about to end, but she didn't feel especially frightened or concerned for her own life. She quietly welcomed her fate. And then, Eris arrived. Her movements were all so direct, yet none of the attackers could keep up with her. All they saw was an afterimage of red hair burned into their minds. She was brilliant. From the first fraction of a moment she laid her eyes on Eris, the Blessed Child saw a divine, righteous beast. I'm glad the child's unharmed, she had said. It wasn't until they returned to the church that the Blessed Child realized that the glorious warrior meant her. She realized that she'd been saved. Then she remembered that she'd seen the woman's eyes and therefore knew her name. Eris. Her name was Eris. Eris Rudeus Greyrat. The Blessed Child said it out loud, replaying the memory in her mind. From that moment on, she idolized the Eris in her memory. She started to imitate Eris. She reacted to things with wild exclamations, and she roared her decisions. She shoveled down mountains of food. All this endeared her to her guards, the keepers of Anastasia, which only encouraged the Blessed Child to love Eris even more. A long time had passed since she first started to model herself after Eris. Her own personality and the ideal woman in her mind were perfectly enmeshed with one another. She wore it like a second skin. Around this time she met Rudeus. Through him, she became reacquainted with Eris secondhand. The Blessed Child assumed she would never see Eris again. She wanted to, but she never asked for permission. She knew all too well that she didn't have that kind of authority. But when she heard that Eris was here, in Millis, she couldn't help herself. She went to the Cardinal and to the Pope and begged them to let her see Sword King Eris. The Berserker Sword King was dangerous, she acknowledged, but she wanted to see her nevertheless, even if only briefly, just long enough to say thank you. No one objected, and so her humble request was approved. A meeting between the Blessed Child and the deadly Berserker Sword King was arranged, with a guarantee from Rudeus that, if anything happens to her, I'll take the blame. With Eris in front of her, however, the Blessed Child had no idea what to say. She felt like looking into Eris's memories would be rude, so she deliberately didn't meet her eyes. Eris stood there, her arms folded. She'd already introduced herself as Rudeus's wife and a Sword King. After that, Therese introduced herself, then offered her thanks for Eris's past assistance. That was about 5 minutes ago.
Hey, we don't have much time, you know.
Eris stood still on her best behavior. It didn't come naturally to her, but Rudeus had given her strict instructions, so she kept her impatience in check. She really helped me out, so try to be polite, he'd said. She might come across as a bit stuck up, but under no circumstances are you to punch her, okay? Eris would do as he said. Still, she was starting to get irritated. She was not into waiting around.
Can we hurry this up?
That was all she said, but it was enough to make the Blessed Child squeak.
Oh, of course.
And jump out from behind Therese. Fear that she was making Eris angry won out over embarrassment.
I'm the Blessed Child. Thank you very much for the time you saved my life.
What? Don't recall that.
You don't?
Eris said it so loudly and directly that the Blessed Child, on instinct, looked into her eyes. Oh, she said. When she looked, she saw no trace of herself at all. Her face fell. Well, what did you expect? She told herself. You knew there was no way she remembered. Even so, all this time she'd held on to hope that just maybe Eris might remember her, that she might say something like, "Oh right, the kid from back then, you've grown up." The Blessed Child was smitten with her after all, but Eris had seen her face and been told what had happened, and she didn't remember her at all. Maybe if I looked for longer, I might find a memory stowed away in a corner somewhere. But when Eris thought of long ago, the only memories the Blessed Child found were of Therese dangling Rudeus on her knees. She was the Blessed Child of memory. She knew that memories were fallible and easily forgotten. That did nothing to lessen her disappointment.
But Rudeus said you saved him, right? Thanks for that.
She stood tall with her arms folded. Her bold voice tore through the Blessed Child's haze of disappointment. The Blessed Child shook her head to clear her mind.
Not at all. I would have done anything to help your husband, Lady Eris.
It didn't matter if Eris didn't remember her. She still loved her and was still grateful to her.
By the way, what's your name anyway? Rudeus said he's going to be working with you in the future, so I want to make sure I remember.
My what?
Name? I don't have a name, she thought. Up until now, it had never felt like an impediment. But now here was Eris saying she wanted to remember it, and the Blessed Child had no answer. She was lacking something important. That missing thing struck her suddenly as a profound loss.
I don't...
A Blessed Child is just like, like what Zenoba is, isn't it? It's not your name, right?
When she said Zenoba, the Blessed Child looked into her eyes again. There was another Blessed Child from another land who apparently possessed a name. Eris didn't care much about him, though, so she didn't remember anything apart from the name. It was a shock. The set dressing started piping up. How dare you? The Blessed Child is the Blessed Child. You mock her? She needs no name. Pray that your God protects you. This helped her calm down a bit. Not having a name had never been a hindrance to her before, she told herself. Besides, she couldn't do anything to change it now.
I'm very sorry, but I don't have a name.
Huh. Well, that works too.
The Blessed Child didn't look into her eyes. so she didn't know what Eris was thinking. If she had looked, she might have seen how Eris came to throw away the name Boreas. She would have known that names meant nothing to Eris. Eris exhaled through her nose, then said,
Names, pah! Who needs them anyway?
The blessed child was relieved. In all her life, this was the most she'd ever agonized over whether to look into someone's eyes.
It was rather surprising to hear you were here, though. I didn't think you were in the country.
Yeah, Rudeus's jimmies are still rustled, so I came running real fast.
Eris knew that the teleportation circles had to be kept secret, but the blessed child, who was well aware of their existence, giggled.
Did you really? You are quite incredible, Lady Eris.
Damn right.
She looked pleased now, and the atmosphere of the whole garden relaxed. Sensing this, the blessed child decided she would flatter Eris more, which could only make the exchange more pleasant. Normally, it wouldn't even occur to her to push the conversation one way or another.
The thing is, you've always been my idol, Lady Eris.
Wait, what?
Yes, so please tell me how I can be like you.
Eris looked down at the blessed child. She saw her round face, her plump arms, and her fluffy, out-of-shape body.
You want to be like me?
I do. I always wanted to be as cool as you, like the way you talk, huh?
She noticed that Eris had drawn her sword, too late. Only 2 of her guards were quick enough to react. They were 2 of the best swordsmen in the Temple Knights, and both already knew that they were doomed. Eris's sword was already moving. There was no sword, or even Eris anymore, merely a flash of light in the air. But they sensed something had been cut and severed. Something. How dare you? You didn't! The blessed child's arm dropped to her side, precisely as a branch that was about half the thickness of her wrist came crashing to the ground. The Temple Knights stared at it in silence for a moment, then went back to being scenery, like nothing had happened. Eris picked up the branch, then briskly set about snapping off all the off-shooting twigs. The blessed child stared at her, thinking about how Eris's sword had appeared in an instant, what a wonderful sword it was, and how none of the Temple Knights' swords remotely compared. When Eris was done tidying up the twigs, she was left with a staff about a meter long.
There you go,
She said, holding it out to the blessed child.
Huh?
The blessed child stared at her wide-eyed with confusion. Eris turned, side face, gripped her sword in both hands, raised it above her head, then swung down. A holy whoosh, so loud it might banish evil, shattered the silence of the garden. The blessed child's ears rang.
Your turn.
Yes, ma'am.
She lifted the staff above her head like Eris had done. Then with a little hi-ya, she took a swing, but her weapon was an unruly, unbalanced meter-long stick, heavy and still green and supple off the tree, so the force of the swing pulled the blessed child along with it. She stumbled forward. The scenery cried out, "Ho!" but didn't mobilize.
How do I?
Lower your body more, then relax your elbows and try to swing with your back. Try again.
Yes, ma'am.
She kept swinging the staff without a clue what was going on. Every time she swung, Eris gave her advice.
You've got to use your voice when you swing. 1, 2, 1.
1, 2, 1, 2.
The Temple Knights didn't get involved. They didn't understand it either, but they could see that Eris wasn't a threat to the blessed child, and so they saw no need to put a stop to things. Plus, it was cute seeing her swinging that stick around. The captain eventually tried stepping in, but the other knights held her back. The entire skirmish between props played out without anyone on the main stage noticing.
Lady Eris, my arms.
Yeah? Okay, that's enough then. You can stop.
The blessed child dropped the staff as instructed. The fatigue spread from her shoulders down to her wrists, almost like her whole upper torso was falling asleep. She felt a twinging sensation, like little cracks were spreading down her arms. She raised them up to her ears and swore she heard her muscles creak. She said, looking up at Eris, worried. Why had she been swinging that staff? She felt like she'd been tested. Was she a failure? Was Eris disgusted with her? Ha! You thought you could be like me. The thought made her feel miserable.
You're to do that every day, starting tomorrow. Also, start running. Around this garden will do.
Huh?
If you don't know what to do, ask one of these guys.
She was looking right at the Blessed Child, feeling as though Eris's eyes were drawing her in. The Blessed Child looked into her memories. She saw the hard life Eris had led training in the sword's sanctum. She saw her swinging her sword without food or drink, running through the snow, screaming, fighting, honing her skills. It was a simple memory, a mere sequence of events, showing how Eris had gone from who she was long ago to who she was now. There had been hardships and suffering, but that honed Eris into the person she was today.
You can be like me.
Her voice was clear and certain. Had Rudeus been there, he might have cut in with a snide remark like, "Yeah, I don't think that's happening." But he wasn't. There was no one around to tell her it was impossible. Came a voice from behind her. The Blessed Child turned and found herself looking into Teresa's eyes. She saw Teresa's own memories of her training. Teresa practiced with her sword in secret, then trained together with the men, all while her mother sniped at her. At times she was happy, and at times she was sad. One thing was constant: she never put down her sword. The Blessed Child then looked around at the other temple knights. She glanced through them all, one at a time. What she saw in the depths of their eyes was not as intense as what she had seen for Eris, but she saw plenty of effort. Memories not only of sword training, but of magic and schoolwork, were vividly etched into their minds. Not one of them doubted that Eris's training plan would get results. She could be like Eris. It was possible. It would be hard. She knew that. It had been hard for all of them too, but she could do it.
Can I really? Is this going to work?
I'm sure it'll be fine. You won't be allowed to use magic or a real sword, but there shouldn't be any issue with just physical training. You'll all help teach her too, right?
She asked, looking around at the scenery. Then she returned her gaze to the Blessed Child.
If something happens, though, if you're attacked by assassins or something, you must promise me that you'll sit back and leave it to us to take care of them.
Within her memories, the Blessed Child saw an inexperienced noble taking on an enemy and dying. Teresa was being kind. She was telling the Blessed Child not to let herself share that fate.
In the name of Sound Millis, I swear it.
Nodding happily. Everything felt indescribably joyful, as though summoned by the happy atmosphere. The silver owl, which had been tootling aimlessly around the garden during their discussion, returned to her side. It tilted its head, looking up at the Blessed Child, and hooting.
Whatever is the matter?
She asked, crouching down and holding her hand out to it. The silver owl leaned forward, like it wanted her to scratch its head. She rubbed its feathered crown with her fingertips, and its downy feathers fluffed up as it closed its eyes in pleasure. Eris watched them, desperate to join in. She loved beast folk, but not just beast folk. Any kind of fluffy animal was good in her books. She met plenty of dogs and cats, but never birds. She could bring down a bird in flight if necessary, but she rarely had the chance to approach a bird this big if she wasn't fighting it.
Hey, can I pet your owl too?
It'd be my pleasure.
Having received permission, Eris squatted down confidently. Her pawing was so forceful that the silver owl recoiled from her touch. Eris went perfectly still. Sudden movements, she'd learned, were a no-go. Animals instinctively feared anything that was stronger and faster than they were. Forcing submission made them obedient. But if you wanted them to like you, you had to convince them that you weren't a threat. Linnea had told her that while submitting to Eris in bed one time, in fact, ever since she'd started acting on that advice, all the pets at Rudeus's house stopped being so terrified of her. Now they simply closed their eyes and accepted their fate. Eris reached out, slow as anything. The silver owl didn't move. It watched her with nervous eyes and huffed a little, but it seemed to respect its mistress's wishes and didn't pull away. Her fingertips reached its feathers. Its wing feathers looked fairly stiff from a distance, but now she felt how soft they were, and her heart leapt with excitement. She wanted to grab it and bury her face in its feathers, but she sensed that was overkill. It'd definitely flap away if she tried it. The same went for Leo, and for Linnea and Persina too. She could live with that. Eris went on, stroking the silver owl. The owl froze like an impala caught in a lion's jaws, but none of the humans noticed.
Do you like my owl?
Turns out birds are great too.
She luxuriated in the owl's softness for a time, then stood up, her cheeks flushed. Fur was nice enough, but feathers, she thought, were on a whole other level. A question suddenly occurred to her.
What's its name anyway?
Its name?
Repeated the blessed child, looking confused and thinking, oh dear, names again.
When you get a pet, you give it a name. That's plain old common sense.
Is it really?
Yep, Rudeus said so.
The blessed child was taken aback. A name? She'd never given anything a name before. She didn't even have one herself. She would never be allowed to use one. It did seem like having one made some things easier, however, which gave her pause. A name? She murmured. Seeing her looking so deeply lost, the scenery got all worked up. Blessed child, allow me, no, allow me, fools. The blessed child must decide for herself. Just then, a man appeared in the garden, an intruder on their private meeting. Hey, Eris, I'm all done now. Our hero, returned from his farewell with Cliff and feeling a touch sentimental, no, hold on, strike that. Like I had time to wallow around feeling sentimental. I was getting ready for battle. I had to be a robot, a sentinel. Anyway, there's a little insight into how Rudeus was feeling as he entered the garden, his face set. What happened?
She's picking a name.
A name? He looked around the garden. The blessed child looked troubled, and the otaku watched her nervously. The newly appointed captain looked as though she had no idea what was going on. Teresa's smile was strained. That told him all he needed to know. Ooh, that's a tricky one. I'm sure Eris wasn't trying to be mean, though.
Oh, would you choose a name for me, Rudeus? I'd be so grateful.
She couldn't choose one herself, but she was sure it would be a piece of cake for Rudeus. Wait, me? Are you sure?
Incredibly so.
Rudeus frowned, looking between Eris and the blessed child. He had to make a good choice, but he'd shown up mere seconds ago, and his brain was stalling. His thoughts ran around and around in circles like a hamster wheel, then ground to a halt. That hamster was pooped. Then a name popped into his mind, a remnant of his past life that reminded him of the blessed child, her soft voice, and the joy she spread. Okay, how about Nurse?
Nurse? Why, that's a wonderful name,
She said, then squatted down to pet Nurse's head.
Starting today, your name is Nurse.
Watching her, Rudeus let out a little gasp of surprise.
Is something the matter?
No, it's nothing, he said, averting his eyes, exactly like someone hiding something would do. She wondered what might be on his mind, but otherwise she felt perfectly satisfied. She had gotten to see her beloved Eris, and her owl had a name. She also had her training, starting tomorrow. It had, she thought, been a very good day.
Thank you so much for coming today, Lady Eris.
I'll be back. And when I'm back, I'll take another look at your form.
Yes, ma'am.
Eris was satisfied, too. She got to stroke the owl. That was more than enough for her. The same went for the scenery. Eris gave them a bit of a scare when she pulled out her sword, but if the blessed child was happy, they were happy. Starting tomorrow, all of them thought, I'll be there to give her footholds and handholds and whatever else she needs for her training. Rudeus alone stood sweating, thinking, crap, as he kept his face down. Therese was the only one who noticed. Just who did you think you were naming? She thought. She didn't say anything, though. She just smirked. Nurse watched them all, its head cocked to one side. And so, Eris got herself another apprentice. Starting the next day, the blessed child started to lose weight, which made the temple knights treat her even more like a pop idol. But that's a story for another time. Mushoku Tensei Vol21 17-1, cast by Artale Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit artale.ai and use promotion code ARTALE to activate your account. Now, enjoy the story.
After that, I would kill everyone who threatened the Blessed Child, even if it meant sacrificing myself. Thus, what you say is impossible. It is impossible that the Blessed Child would ever be put in harm's way.
His eyes were totally deranged. Therese listened. The wheels in her mind turned more slowly until, at last, the gears re-engaged. Dustbin, she realized, was a fanatic. He was madly dedicated to the Millis doctrine, and that was why he'd pledged his life to defending the Blessed Child. She was the reincarnation of St. Millis himself, the symbol of his faith. He worshipped her and would do anything to protect her. His was an unwavering belief. He never doubted. All of the keepers of Anastasia were like that. As she thought this, Teresa's desire to marry him vanished like a bubble bursting. Her heart came around to the realization that she'd misjudged him. Why had she wanted to marry a guy like him? She knew he was like this. She'd lost her mind. She'd gotten desperate and forgotten who this was. And then she'd mistaken what she wanted to see for reality. She was thoroughly convinced so long as he was good-looking, that was enough. Therese was left with only one option.
Well said. That is the quality that makes you worthy amongst all the faithful to protect the Blessed Child.
Thank you, Captain. You honor me.
From this day forth, you are to be ever vigilant and ensure you never again make such a blunder.
You have my word, Captain.
With that, Teresa's pride was safe. As deputy captain, she had tested the faith of her subordinate who had brazenly presented himself before someone who could, under no circumstances, be allowed to know his true identity. She determined that he could be allowed to continue as a member of the Keepers of Anastasia. No deputy captain would ever try to seduce her subordinate because she was desperate to get married. That was ridiculous.
But Captain, that performance was brilliant. I was horrified.
Were you really?
The way your eyes glittered. I never thought you'd really come on to me like that, Captain.
I'm horrifying. She shouldn't have to put up with this. Not from this dipshit lackey.
She'd really given it her best shot. Sure, she still wished she'd applied herself to learning proper manners back at school. But even so.
I was captivating.
Huh?
I was so beautiful, so gorgeous. You weren't sure if you could restrain yourself, right?
Cold sweat ran down Dust's forehead. His back was sticky, and a tremor rattled his legs. Fear. Dustbin of the Keepers of Anastasia, whose unshakable faith allowed him, unflinching, to face down even the strongest opponents, was scared.
I could just marry you, you know? In fact, maybe I should. You're a careless guy. How can I know something like this won't happen again? If you marry me, you at least don't have to worry about any more marriage proposals.
But I'm
kidding. I'm rejecting you. We were both off duty today, but we'll be at the Blessed Child's side again tomorrow. Don't be late.
Yes, Captain?
Teresa's skirts fluttered as she turned and strode from the room, looking every inch a knight. Dust watched her go, then wiped away the sheen of cold sweat accumulating on his forehead.
That was the correct decision. You appeared to be unhappy about it, but a man of that caliber cannot be a suitable match for a daughter of the Latria. That was a practice round. I shall find you a better partner next time, so make sure to use what you have learned this time so that you may conduct yourself as a lady.
As Claire got into the swing of a very long lecture, Therese felt a twinge of unease. Her first prospective match had been Dust. On paper, he was an adequate candidate, but in reality had turned out to be catastrophically mismatched. She worried that if Claire went on searching like this, she might turn up other similarly unsuitable matches.
I understand, Mother.
For one thing, it would be hard to turn around and announce she'd thought better of it after she was the one who'd gone to Claire for help, and the truth was, she really did want to get married. There was no way Claire would bring her more awful matches.
I'll do my best.
That's the spirit, Therese. I know you're busy with your work, but be sure not to skimp on your studies and your practice. You want them to see you as a lady.
Yes, Mother.
Next time she'd meet a good man, she was sure of it. Before long, Teresa's certainty would be rewarded. But that's a story for another time. Extra chapter: The Monkey and the Wolf. Geese.
My eyes opened. I rose, cracking my neck and checking all my parts were working. No tingling in my limbs, no indigestion, no weird growths on my skin. Apart from a mild grumble in the belly, I was fit as a fiddle. I went out of my tent and stretched, feeling my back crack as I yawned. I watched the sun rise. The direction of the sun told me the direction I was facing. I compared that with my map and the ridgeline to confirm my current location. I checked yesterday too before the sun set, but things can look different from morning to evening, you know. It's important to check 2 or 3 times. It's mostly the idiots who don't confirm where they are who get lost. West today, huh? I muttered to myself as I worked out where I needed to go. No one was around to reply. Last night, the man god came into my dreams again, told me to go west with the rising sun, rest at the roots of the 3rd tree on Fennel Boulevard, then get on the 5th carriage that passed. I'd ride in the carriage for a while, then get off at the town it arrived in and stay at the New Leaf Inn. That'd keep me out of the hands of Rookwag's mercenary band, he said. Doesn't make much sense, does it? Now, if you were an average guy, you'd probably start to feel a bit suspicious of all that. It's not like the man god ever tells you why you gotta do everything just so. So at some point in the course of your life, you wind up doing something a little different to what he told you, and bam, they got you. I get it, I really do. Back in the day, I used to pull stuff like that myself. These days, though, I live by the man god's words. That's the right way to live, I reckon. Far as I'm concerned, the man god's word is law.
Yeah, all right, I hear you. Obviously, just because I do what he says doesn't mean everything always turns out perfect. Sometimes his advice gets me into some pretty gnarly situations. Ain't even uncommon. But you know what I say to that?
So what? I mean, come on, think about it.
Whether I do what he says or not, sometimes shit happens. Life's not all sunshine and roses.
One thing I can say for sure, though. So long as I obey him, I don't die.
How do I know that?
I'm weak as they come, but I've gotten through some majorly dangerous situations and lived to tell the tale. Look, I've watched a lot of tough guys way beyond my level slip up and die. It's pathetic, actually. These guys are always swaggering around like they're king badass. Then when they're about to die, they start blubbering. Help me, I don't want to die. Save me, Mommy.
I get it. Everyone's a little pathetic. It's fine. But the guys who go down like that are always the dudes who go around bragging about how death don't scare them. Bona fide hero types. Every single one of them. Don't it make you sick?
Look, people try to avoid death. That's nature. Our instincts tell us dying's bad, that it's freaking scary. And don't get me wrong, I'm scared. I don't want to die. And that's why, so long as the man god gives me advice that keeps me alive, that's all I need. He's the reason I've survived this long. You could say he's my guardian angel, or whatever the evil version of that is. The story of how I got my chance to pay him back for all this starts a few years ago. I was passed out drunk in a tavern in Asura like usual when the man god spoke to me. Said he had a request. Now, his requests pretty much never end well. The last time he had one for me, my hometown got wiped off the map. I wept enough for a lifetime and screamed until my voice gave out. This time, no doubt in my mind, it'd be just as bad. He likes to make you think he's on your side and then break you. Back when my hometown got destroyed, he showed up just to laugh at my stupid, shocked face. I expected all that, but this time something was different. I didn't get this far in life without knowing how to read people. I could tell the man god was in a serious bind, and he'd come looking for help. That's why I decided to accept. I did think it might be an act, but the dude's not exactly an actor. Plus, if he really was in a jam, I had no hesitation about lending a hand. A debt's a debt, after all, and I owed him big. The man god said that Rudeus had betrayed him. In reality, he'd probably shown up to have a good laugh at Rudeus like he'd done with me, and it hadn't gone how he'd wanted. Anyway, he said Rudeus was his enemy now, that he'd sided with the dragon god Orsted, I think it was. Number 2 out of the 7 great powers. A real big shot. The details aren't important. All I needed to know is that Boss had allied himself with this big shot god, and now he was making trouble for the man god. The man god can see the future. He can see so far ahead that the demon eye of foresight might as well be blind. You'd think that'd make beating his enemies child's play, but apparently it wasn't that simple. He didn't tell me all the ins and outs, but he did tell me 2 things. First, he could only see the futures of 3 people at a time. Second, he couldn't see Orsid's future. If Orsted went and interfered with any of the three people whose future he'd already seen, those futures would change. From the man god's point of view, if Orsted, and only Orsted, messed with their futures, it'd be like absolutely nothing had changed. From his white room, he could see the whole wide world, but Orsted was a gaping hole in his vision. Now, he said, Rudeness had inherited this little quirk of Orsted's. He was under the dragon god's protection or something. Orsted had some kind of curse on him that made people fear him and see him as an enemy, so there weren't too many people like that. No one went calling on him for aid, and he didn't have any allies. But with Boss as his go-between, all of a sudden he could get loads of people on his side. Now how do you think that'll work out for the man god? The funny thing is, the man god can see his own death. One day, without warning, his vision flipped. He used to see himself towering over where he lay fallen, kicking him as he lay there. Now it was Orsted doing the laughing and the kicking. Why could he only see that moment? Well, probably because at that moment, Orsted and the man god were both in the same place. He saw that vision through his own eyes, and that meant he could see Orsted too. Look, I don't worry about the details of how the man god's powers work. What mattered was that Rudeus was now a threat. The man god needed Rudeus taken out quick, and he'd already tried a bunch of plans to kill him. No matter what he tried, though, nothing worked. In the Asura kingdom, he tried pitting the North Emperor and the Water God against him, but neither of them got the job done. Not only did Orsted come out fine, but he couldn't even take down Rudeus. Rudeus went on his merry way, still recruiting. So the man god hatched a plan. If 3 disciples weren't enough to take down Orsted, he'd just make more. We'd copy Rudeus. Orsted couldn't build alliances himself, but with Boss as his go-between, he rustled up a whole network of helpers. The man god could only work through 3 disciples at a time, but so long as he got one of those disciples to gather allies, he'd end up with a lot more than 3 followers. Sweet idea, huh? And I'd been singled out as the man for the job of wrangling those allies. I did wonder why he went with me, but then the man god's usual playbook when he finished using someone was to trample on everything they love and throw whatever was left in the trash. So maybe I was the last guy he had left. Once I was done building our army, he'd wait for the perfect moment, then have them all strike at once. Bye-bye, Rudeus. And that's how I ended up here, running my tail off finding people to turn to the man god's cause. My deadline was the man god's ripe moment. Not much time left, but I wasn't doing bad. Not that finding allies was easy. Here's how we tag teamed it. The man god told me, that guy, and then I went and met them, buttered them up with my best smooth talking, and then told them to be at the meeting point for the right moment. Everyone the man god had sent me after so far was sketchy as hell. They could get the job done for sure, but they were all a little cockeyed, or they only seemed to half follow what I was talking about, or they had some weird issues, or I just couldn't get a read on them at all. I mean, hey, that's probably why they'd sit still while a guy like me was talking. Main problem was that there weren't a lot of them, including me. I could count us all on 2 hands. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for in muscle. From world-famous warriors to dudes who'd fit right into Millis fairy tales, they were all top of the class. I tried to suggest that maybe we should just hire a couple of 100 generic types who'd work for gold or whatever instead, but that got the thumbs down.
The man god was nervous about traitors.
He wasn't wild about this business of taking on people whose futures he couldn't see. Fair enough. The man god isn't exactly popular. You didn't have to be a genius to know what would happen if Rudeus showed up to win hearts and minds. Boss might not look it, but he's got a knack for getting people to follow him. Worried about something? He'll be there worrying with you. Got a problem? He'll be there to solve it with you no matter how much you lag behind. He'll wait for you to catch up, and even though he's got crazy power levels, he's nice to guys who don't. That's why we couldn't rely just on numbers. The man god was right. Also, sorry to say, I'm not the charismatic type. I can't work off. Every ally was a potential enemy, so we couldn't take on too many. We'd also be more likely to end up with idiots who didn't listen to the plan. That was all you needed to turn a winning position into a losing one, so we stuck with a select few. If nothing else, these guys wouldn't turn traitor. They turned out to be pretty useful for all their quirks. With their help, we'd suss out Rudeus and Orsted's weak points. Maybe I'm speaking out of line, but I reckon he could probably be a bit more trusting, you know? It wouldn't even matter who they were. If we had numbers on our side, it would really increase our options. You don't get the big money unless you take a few risks.
At the end of the day, though, he's the boss. I'm the disciple. His word goes. The chief did have a few words for me this time, though. Why didn't you kill Rudeus when you had the chance? You could have poisoned him!
Yeah, sure. The thing is, I gotta be true to myself.
How to put it? Well, betraying Boss would, if you look at it from the right angle, be the same as betraying Paul, right? I could never have betrayed Paul, so how could I murder his son, right? Man's gotta have a code, you know. The man god didn't buy it, but I know myself. Say I'd tried to poison Rudeus or whatever. I reckon I'd have choked before I went through with it. Along the way, I'd have gotten cold feet. But after he turned traitor, there's no more fear of that. I've made my mind up for real now. Rudeus Greyrat is my enemy. So here I am, present day, getting ready to set off for yet another day of sniffing out hidden talent to join the case. How many was I up to now? 3?
4. Every one of them so far was worth an army by themselves.
I never thought I'd get to meet this caliber of guy, let alone talk to them. Far as I was concerned, they were all the stuff of legends and way out of my league. When I started talking to them, though, they were surprisingly mean. Okay, it shouldn't have come as a surprise, but they were all just guys.
Ordinary guys, even if they had some personality issues.
Especially the first one. He was famous enough, even you might know him.
But damn, he really was just another guy.
So here we were, a little while after the man god came to me with his request. Before I set off, the man god had some busy work for me. I grabbed a blade of a demon sword lying rotting in the back of a storehouse of old junk in the Asura kingdom, and then a hilt from a burial mound in the King Dragon realm. Then took them to a blacksmith who handled demon weapons and had them reforged. I went and got a hold of this alcohol made by a pretty shifty tribe on the demon continent. Few other odds and ends. I didn't know what any of it was for, mind you. Though, I mean, from what the man god told me, and imagining what was coming best I could see how that stuff might be handy. Better safe than sorry, as they say. Better to be over-prepared. I also did a little snooping, but I can't beat the man god when it comes to gathering intel, so a lot of that work went to waste. After all that, I headed north on the man god's instructions. Unlike Rudeus, I didn't have any ancient dragon tribe displacement relics, so I was limited by travel time. But there were a few other teleportation circles around, funnily enough. I didn't know if Orsted knew about them or not. He didn't seem to be using them, so I used them to get around. There are only a few of them, and they couldn't get you absolutely everywhere, but they came in handy. On the man god's say-so, I went to the town closest to my final destination, stocked up on cold weather gear, then plodded out into the snow that was just beginning to pile up. I was heading for a ravine in the middle of a forest, and the forest was home to monsters. I'd definitely run into some. A guy like me had no business going in alone without any weapons or defense. But I had a few tricks up my sleeve. The man god told me that if I entered the forest at the right time, then did the right thing at the right moment, I could get from A to B without being bothered. For example, he said, when you reach a cave beneath a great turnell tree, stop and count slowly to 20 before moving on. I did as he told me, checking underneath each turnell tree I passed.
There was no chance I'd miss it. If the man god said there was a cave, it'd be there.
There'd be no sign it worked and no explanation why I ought to do it. I'd stand there in front of a little hole, maybe just big enough for a kid to hide inside in the softly falling snow, and count slowly to 20. I wouldn't look inside or pull anything out of it. Nothing would come crawling out. If everything went perfect, best case scenario, nothing would happen. Without a hope in hell of understanding what I was doing, I'd hurry off on my way. Oh, but if I hung out just a second longer, something real bad would happen. Now I'm no slouch, so I could guess what's what. I'm an S-ranked adventurer. I knew what kind of monster made its nest in this hole. This was where snowbucks, these beasts kind of like giant deer, lived when they were infants. They spent the winter there, then came out in spring. They holed up to protect themselves against their natural predators, basically every other flesh eater and monsters. The head honcho in this forest? Well, that'd be the ice-claw tiger. They burrow through the snow after their prey, then pounce when you're least expecting it. I never noticed a thing, but hell, I probably was being stalked by an ice-claw tiger. This here, though, was an easier, tastier meal. May the little baby snowbuck rest in peace.
Anyway, that's how it works when you can see the future.
Things might be dangerous, but there's no need to worry about dying. Nothing unexpected happens. You might get a few scrapes and bruises, but you always get the job done.
I got through the forest that way.
Just outside the forest, I found the ravine. A cold wind cut through it. The cliff walls were all sheeted in ice. Chunks of it floated in the river that ran along the bottom. Brrr, I shivered. Cold didn't do it justice. I wanted to get the hell out of here right quick. But I swallowed that feeling and set off. I walked for half a day alongside the icy ravine until I found a path leading down the cliff face. I followed it down, then continued further up the ravine until I found him. He sat leaning against a huge boulder, cradling his sword. A campfire blazed in front of him where a hunk of meat on a spit sizzled as it roasted. I didn't need to ask to know what kind of meat it was. I could see the carcass lying just behind the man and his fire. It was covered in white scales, the color of snow, and had enormous talons and fangs. A snow dragon, an S-ranked monster. These monsters were sudden mutations of the A-ranked white drake. They were twice the size of a white drake, breathed ice, and could use high-level water magic. Their wings weren't for flying, but for helping them jump. They used their muscular legs to kick off the walls of the ravine and leap down on their prey.
They weren't technically dragons, but they were still closer to a dragon than a white drake. They were as strong as dragons, hence that name. Snow dragon, you see?
They were seriously rare, and tyrannized and devoured whole flocks of white drakes. Not the kind of monster you went hunting alone.
This guy seemed to have taken this bad boy down all by himself. I wasn't surprised or anything.
I knew he was the sort of guy who could do it, and now we were going to have a talk.
When I got near enough to him, a shiver shot up my spine. This guy would kill me.
He didn't have to warn me. I knew that past this point I'd be stepping in range of his sword, and I'd best be ready to face the consequences.
My face felt like it was going to cramp up, but I forced myself to show a smile that would hide my fear and radiate confidence. Then, smile fixed in place, I went up to him. It felt kind of wrong for me to be looking down on this guy, but he was sitting down.
What was I supposed to do?
Yes, he said. It was a challenge, but his voice was deathly calm. He wasn't trying to threaten or intimidate me, just asking indifferently after my sudden appearance like you might ask someone's name. So I answered, "I'm Geese. I didn't ask your name," he replied.
All right, read that wrong. I wondered where to start.
I had a lot to talk to him about to start off with, though I decided to just shut up and stand there. Guys like this hate smooth talkers. They had their own method of persuasion. For y'all following along, that method's violence, that thing that I'm no good at, and this guy in particular, his violence was impeccable.
Great stuff, world class. No need to break that out here, though. I sure wasn't about to start any silence. Would work fine.
What the hell's going on here? He growled. See what I mean?
I kept my lips zipped and he started talking all by himself. He wasn't done. The other night, some bastard calling himself God-Man or whatever showed up in my dreams saying he wants me to help him out. Said if I heard him out, he'd make my dreams come true. He tells me about this place as proof. When I showed up, I found this thing.
He jerked his thumb at the snow dragon carcass behind him.
Hey now, Lord Man-God, you didn't say nothing about calling him here. If I'd been told to show up here, then found a beast like that waiting, I'd think I'd been tricked. When I was a lad, I ran up against a snow dragon and barely got out with my life. He said I was going to go back and kill it one day, but along the way I forgot about it. Would you believe it? I show up and here it is. So that's your game. I thought I got it. The man-god was a pro at this kind of thing, making your dreams come true or close to it. Anyway, this guy didn't seem to feel like he'd been tricked, even after having a snow dragon set on him. Oh, right, of course, one of those hero types. So I killed it, and now you show up, he went on, then pointed at me. A monkey face, hey? You said you're called Geese, right? Finally, he looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw his face. He didn't look especially strong. I spend all my time trying to read people, so I can usually tell from their faces whether they're strong or weak. It's not like I judge it off how rough they look. It's all in the expression. People who are strong usually put it all out there. They work hard every day, so they don't think of it like hardship. It's normal business to them. They have a clear image of their own capabilities, and they don't waver. That means they don't usually put up a front. This dude wasn't showing off, but he was wavering. Someone had come along and torn everything he thought was true into tiny pieces. Now he was exhausted, out of patience, and at his limit. That was what his face told me.
Oh, I got it. I see.
He'd gotten his ass kicked, and recently. Beaten!
Half dead. This is someone who thought that wasn't possible, or at least thought he had a few years left before he declined to that point.
He'd had his world rocked thoroughly so that now he didn't know what to think. Sapped of confidence, he'd come here to lick his wounds. Oh yeah, I know just what your deal is. I've seen it 100 times before. None of them quite so much a cut above the rest as you, but all strong enough in their own right. The look of a big, unbeatable guy despairing after someone cut them down a notch or two isn't a sight I'll soon forget. The thing is, just 'cause you're feeling down doesn't mean all's lost, buddy. This guy was still a master of his craft. I had no doubt I could use him.
Explain, he demanded.
So, at last, I opened my mouth. There was so much I had to say to him. After the man god gave me his profile, I'd worked out a bit of a speech, hence why I stayed mum till now. Guys like him, they really fly off the handle like they're having a fit when you start jabbering on, trying to smooth talk them. The art of talking's all in making sure you're clear and to the point. First off, right, yeah, so I'm here as a delegate for the man god. What? Say what? You ain't heard delegate before? Man, I can't abide unlearned types. Yeesh, all right, you got me. I didn't go to school either. Look, the man god'll grant your dreams. In return, he's got a teensy favor task. He's gathering allies. I'm here as, I guess what you'd call the errand boy. Ha! Dreams, eh? He said. You and your boss know what my dream is then? He stroked the hilt of his sword. Ooh, ho, ho, that's scary. He didn't do anything but stroke it, but if the fancy struck him, that sword would be out before I could blink, and then my head could kiss bye-bye to my body. Or maybe it'd be my left and right eyes making their farewells. This dude's body language was telling me loud and clear. If I didn't talk seriously, I was dead.
If I gave an answer he didn't like, also dead.
Fortunately, I knew what his dream was. The man god told me everything ahead of time. I knew why this sad sack loser was lurking by himself out here. If that info was wrong, though, I mean, it'd be just like him to tell me wrong. Oh, holy man god, do not forsake me. Even I, your humble servant, won't find it funny if I die here. The dragon god Orsted, I said. It felt like the temperature around us plummeted, but that told me that I was bang on the money. If he had no reaction that I could pick up on, I'd be as good as dead. We were officially in business. I told him something I shouldn't know. While his mind reeled from the shock, I kept talking so he didn't have a chance to start thinking again. You want to defeat the dragon god Orsted. He beat you once, long ago, so you trained to become the strongest there is, and after a fashion, you got there. But then, you found yourself chained up by the restrictions you set on yourself, no longer even trying to go after your goal, your ultimate enemy. The man god's going after Orsted too, only, well, he's not going for glory, he just wants him dead. By any means necessary, eh? And you're the means, see? Only, sorry, mate, but you don't have a chance all on your lonesome. I'll be inviting a few more to the party. Whoa there, don't glare at me like that. Was anything I said just now wrong? You know full well you're no match against Orsted alone, but I reckon you want to try, eh? All this time you've wanted it, otherwise you'd never have run off from your house where you lived all those years, left behind everything you depended on all that time, ditched your family to come live like a vagabond out here. You could have had a cushy job in government. You could have gone wherever you pleased. Am I wrong? So, what I'm offering you is the right to challenge Orsted. You could roam around out here till the day you die and you might never run into him, or he might flat out reject your challenge and send you packing. Stick with me, though, and I'll get you the best possible stage for your showdown. I'll make it so that Orsted will face you. No running or hiding. Easy now, I get it.
I get what you're thinking. You reckon you're not entitled to take on Orsted.
But didn't you swear an oath to yourself back when he beat you last time? You said you weren't going to ever lose again? Not to Orsted, not to nobody. And you managed it. Right up till the other day, you were undefeated. And yeah, you lost. You got your second taste of defeat. Even after you swore that oath, you got walked all over like how you usually knock out small-timers. And that's why you came slinking off like a dog to trudge around this ravine. You're not even looking for Orsted. You're wandering aimlessly around.
Yeah, I get it. You don't deserve it, right?
Now that you've been beat, just at once, you've lost your right to challenge Orsted. There was a sharp glint in his eyes now. Still, though, he still didn't come at me with his sword. He used his words instead. That's wrong, he said.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's all wrong.
Totally wrong. He caught my drift. My words were getting through to him. Not deserving. As if you absolutely deserve it. I mean, come on. Who says you've got to be number 2 before you earn a shot at number 1? Just because someone else got you, does that mean you can't take on Orsted? Who says nobody? Now, when you think about it like that, you've got more of a right than anyone. You spent your whole life working toward it. I saw a shadow in his eyes. He was cracking. One more little push. You want to challenge Orsted. Who cares about winning or losing? You might be weak past your prime. Who cares? Heck, maybe that's better.
It might actually be better. Now's when you get to shake off those chains.
You can go and face him without anything hanging over you. Now, sure, maybe you'll get crushed. So what? What are you gonna do? Wander aimlessly till you get old and frail and die like a stray mutt? You're really okay with that? You're not a punk, are you? So what's stopping you? Come on, join me. Then we'll take on Orsted. What do you say?
I finished, then I reached out a hand to him.
He didn't say anything. His eyes were shadowy, hesitating, faltering, staring straight at me. Oh, I overdid it. It's always the best policy to dump all the information you've got at once and only give the other guy the chance to think once you've set him on a path. The thing with these kind of standoffs is that if you talk too much, they shut down altogether. He was reacting to some of what I was saying, so I thought I was doing all right. But maybe he wasn't the cerebral type? It'd be unexpected, but this was the kind of risk I had to take. Anyway, you can't force people to think the way you want by cramming a bunch of words into their skulls. So, overwhelm them a little up front, set the tone, let them stew on it. I gave him all the math, he just had to put it together. But something inside of him was stopping him. He needed an excuse to swallow the bait, then I'd have him.
That's my approach.
Actually, if he were smarter, I think he'd already be aboard. Too bad he didn't speak. Real quiet. This ravine was the snow dragon's lair. No other monsters to bother us here. No wind. I couldn't even hear the sound of water from the frozen stream. Only the sizzling of roasting meat told me that time was passing.
The man was more than just silent. He didn't move a muscle.
He was so still he could have been dead. He had no presence at all. Like he wasn't even here. Silence gets to me. When everything's silent, that means I'm alone. I'm nothing on my own. All it would take was one monster lurking about here. I'd be dead meat. I wasn't going to roll over with my paws up, but I wasn't about to kid myself I could win. All I could do was... I'm not interested in becoming any man's pawn, said the man suddenly. Even if that means I rot away out here.
He didn't take my hand. Worse, he reached for his sword.
I felt sweat prickle all over my body. Every cell was screaming at me to get the hell out of there. But my brain fought back and told me to stay put. It knew I couldn't get away. This guy could cut me into pieces in a heartbeat. My corpse would be buried in the snow until spring thawed it out and the bugs came to eat me up. But I was still in one piece. He wasn't toying with me. If he wanted to kill me, it'd be over in a second. So why? Just then the man muttered, "Hey, monkey face, why are you doing this?" It felt like he was just giving me a chance to answer before he killed me. You didn't think maybe after you came to me spout some bullshit, I might just cut your head off and leave your sorry corpse here? Oh. The thought occurred to me more than a few times. Every single time I walked up to some raging madman, fighting back the urge to scream, using my tongue and every ounce of my wits to talk him down. Let me ask you though, you ever think about the pains I've gone to so I didn't piss off guys like you? What dreams your master granting you, eh? What are you doing this for? The man asked. What for? I hadn't expected that question, but it made sense now I thought about it. I must be confusing for others looking in. I'll have you know, I'm a faithful servant of the man G.
Don't you give that faith crap.
He said... A wave of malice washed over me. My legs started shaking like mad. Something within me was twitching. It was so intense it made everything up till now feel like nothing. I started wondering if maybe I wasn't already dead. I've run into my share of devout followers, maniacs like those Millis Night Orders that'd do anything for their precious god. I don't get that sense from you, not one bit. Whoa there! Don't stereotype. The Millis Night Orders are a bunch of bona fide fanatics. But then, maybe challenging Orsted means I am too. Yeah, putting it like that, it makes sense. Number 2 of the 7 great powers, and the opponent this guy gave up his whole life to try and beat. And, well, the only one I'm gonna be fighting is Boss. But seeing as it's me, that doesn't change much. Why would someone like me risk my skin to fight an opponent I can't beat? One that's totally out of my league.
That's all he's asking. No one would do that without a good reason.
But, why though?
Why was I doing this for the man god?
Now it was my turn to fall silent. When you're talking to guys with a temper, clamming up's tantamount to a death wish. The funny thing was, though, he gave me a little time. I guess when you get to the best of all the angry guys, they've developed a little patience. Everything sank into silence again. My thoughts stretched back, far back, way back to the time from my own birth to when I became an adventurer, before I met the man god.
I was born in a little village in the south of the Demon Continent. I was the third of 5 kids of the village chief.
It wasn't much, but we lived a little freer than your average villager. Back then, though, I felt plenty restricted. See, my future wife was chosen for me when I was born, as well as my future job. The job of a son of the village chief was to live the life he was told to. So long as I pulled that off, I could do whatever else I wanted. The job they picked was record keeping. I kept track of the food we grew and caught, the goods we got through trading those with the outside world, the goods we bought. I counted everything in the whole village and wrote it down tidily. That was it. It was important work thinking about it. Over the years, as I saw shops that keep slipshod books and adventurers who couldn't manage their gold, I got how important it was. All young geese thought back then, though, was that it was boring. There's so much more I could do, I thought. If I just got a chance to pick up a sword or study magic, I'd show everyone I could be somebody. Or maybe if I could just go into the service of some country you'd all hear about my big heroics, I'd go down in history. Whenever I started shooting my mouth off like that, my father beat me down. Know your place, was what he liked to say. Looking back, I reckon my father said it because he saw me for who I really was. My father knew the limits of my potential. I didn't, obviously. How the hell was I supposed to know my place? I'd never stepped outside it, so I flew the coop. Abandoned my job, ran away from home, and stowed away in one of the merchant caravans that came to trade with our village. I left my family and my betrothed to run away to the biggest town nearby. That was where my legend would begin. I was absolutely convinced of that, but reality caught up with me real fast. Whether it was magic or swordcraft, I was a lost cause. I couldn't even hit average. I guess I managed about as well as anyone else, battle chops aside, but I sure didn't stand out in any way. I could barely beat the average when I worked my butt off. Mastery, though, don't make me laugh. I tried all kinds of stuff to try and find my talent, but it was no good. I was firmly stuck being average. Mediocre no matter how you looked at me, yet I tried to make it as an adventurer even.
That was my dream, see? I'd thrown away everything for it.
I couldn't give up and slink back to my village after all that. I wasn't too bad with my hands, so I thought to try out crafting. Managed to complete some F-rank jobs. As a lone adventurer trying not to freeze to death, I somehow managed to keep myself afloat. It didn't satisfy me, though. F-ranked adventurer jobs were, when it came down to it, just odd jobs. I was the town handyman, jack of all trades. How was that any different to life back home? I hadn't run away to do this crap. I wanted thrilling adventures. I wanted to do great deeds that'd fill those who heard my name with awe. That was my So I went for it. I clumsily picked up a sword, got myself a second-hand set of armor, scrounged up some teammates, then went out into the wilderness to do gathering and slaying. It was a disaster. We got slaughtered. Just like most beginner adventurer parties on the Demon Continent, the monsters tore us to pieces. The only reason I survived was because of a dream I had right before it happened. In an empty space, standing on a white floor that stretched on forever, a man with a face I couldn't make out gave me a divine message. If this happens, he told me, here's what you should do. It was all so casual, I shook it off as a random dream. No way what he was describing could happen to us. But, of course, it did. My teammates' heads were ripped from their bodies and devoured, and I was left alone, cornered, snot and tears running down my face. That was when I did what the mysterious man in my dream had told me to do. A dead man will take whatever help he can get. I survived. From that day forth, Little Geese became a disciple of the man god, and I thought life as a disciple was basically heaven. The man god taught me how to fight with a sword and with magic, and while he might not have given me a power on par with a demon eye, he readily told me the future. With that at my disposal, I moved up in the world. I breezed through some seriously nasty situations that I'd never have worked out on my own, which got me noticed by some real powerful guys. They became my allies. I used my knowledge of the future to help those guys out and gain their trust. Together with them, I set off on a thrilling adventure. I loved every minute of it. See? Didn't it happen exactly like I said? Anything apart from fighting, I've got you covered. I told them, so long as I could go around bragging, I was happy. I felt like I was one of the best. These real powerful guys treated me as an equal, and all the nobodies around us assumed I was a big shot like my peers. What else could I ask for? After my hometown got wiped out and I joined Fangs of the Black Wolf, the man god didn't tell me the future as much, but I didn't pay it any mind. I was having fun running after Paul anyway. He still popped up a fair bit to save my skin when it counted. The man god's advice was like a part of who I was. It was thanks to him that I got to be a real adventurer. Part of me, though, felt empty. That feeling was strongest after the Fangs of the Black Wolf split up, and I spent a while wandering around by myself. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was a fraud, that I'd never achieved anything myself. If I weren't such a pushover, maybe I could have believed in myself a little, but the fact remained that I couldn't fight to save my life. Without my knowledge of the future, my only purpose was to tag along after really strong, really amazing types and cover their weak points. My whole adventurer persona was just a shell of lies and pride. You know how goldfish poop clings to them while they swim? That was me. All I had going for me were cheap tricks and a quick tongue. There wasn't anything, not one thing I was really good at. Was I okay living like this? When it came down to it, what did I even want? Who did I want to be? Those feelings had always been lurking deep inside of me. What I told the gruff guy in front of me was simple. You probably won't understand, but in my whole life I'd never been ahead, I said.
I wasn't trying to talk him into anything. Right now, I was giving voice to what lay in my heart.
I got by on scraps, always trying to get an edge on people, lying and sweet-talking and riding around on other people's coattails. I never, ever achieved a single thing independently.
I'd never had anything I wanted. I had a dream.
I wanted to go on an awesome adventure and go down in history. It wasn't so much to ask, was it?
Who actually cares about history?
That was my one desire, you know, to be...
I got to go adventuring, but I was always tagging after my teammates. I never had them follow me somewhere I wanted to go. I reckon I knew deep down. I knew I was borrowing all my power, and anything I achieved with it would be hollow.
At any moment, a little gesture from the man god could take it all away. So I tried not to want anything. If I set my sights on something, I thought I'd never get it. Just relax, have fun, go with the flow of whatever life threw at me, then everything would work out just fine. Now there's a jinx to live by, I thought. It's a bit different now, though. The man god came to me for help. An all-powerful god lowered himself down to ask me. He needed me. I wasn't trashed. I was somebody who mattered. If we won this fight, in other words, that'd prove that I was special. I'd always been on my guard around everyone, layering up lies upon lies, thinking I was useless. What if this was my chance to be strong, just like I always wanted? That's why, how should I put it? Was that an answer I'd stake my life on, though? That all of it was crap. That I already knew what I was worth.
I knew it. I knew I was nothing special.
Can't swing a sword, can't use magic. There was the odd thing I could do better than your guy on the street, but I never mastered anything. I'd always be a jack of all trades and a master of none. A monkey-faced nobody. But, I can't let it end like this, I said, and then I shut up. I was surprised at how right those words sounded to me. That's it. That's how I always felt. All this time I thought I was having a good enough time with life, enjoying myself, and one day I'd die in a ditch and that'd be that. But deep down I felt different.
You can't, said the man. He took his hand off his sword. His eyes were dull now, the gleam from before gone. If that ain't the truth, you're exactly right. I blurted out what came into my head, but thinking it over, what I said fit this guy's situation pretty perfectly. I can't let it end like this. I couldn't, and neither could he.
All right, he said with a savage grin, then reached out and took my still outstretched hand. I'll come be your pawn. It was all so quick, it felt a bit anticlimactic, but what I'd said just now had brought this guy around. This guy, the greatest swordsman in the world, so powerful all humankind knew his name. So what do I do now? Do I guard you? He asked. No. I felt a smile coming and forced it down. Maybe I didn't need to, but it's not good practice to go around smirky at people. It drives them off. That's another jinx. Write it down. For now, you're to go here, I said, handing him a map. Once you get there, I'll tell you what comes next. One more thing. If we run into each other, act like you don't know me. This is all top secret. The location of the final showdown was already set. When I wasn't off making invitations to guys like this, I was getting it ready. I was being careful, taking my time to shore everything up. I wasn't gonna lose. Fair enough, he said after he took the map. One thing, though.
I'm no actor. You don't want to get caught. You'd best stay out of my way.
He started to walk away. It was like he didn't give a damn about me, like I wasn't even here. I like that. You could tell he'd lived his whole life by a sword, no pointless actions, no wasted words. When he decided something, he just did it. Not the easiest person to maneuver, but insanely powerful. And now he was my pawn. I watched his back retreat until he faded from sight. Then, with a whoop, I punched my fist up in the air. That first guy was the easiest. He was a big enough deal to need no introduction and sure as hell didn't act like he had time for a nobody like me, but in the end, all we had to do was talk. He came around to what I was saying and joined me of his own accord. Timing probably had something to do with it. After all my plotting and worrying, in the end it was something I hadn't even meant as persuasion. That conveniently happened to resonate with him. People will always open up about whatever's troubling them if someone comes to them with the perfect words. In the end, that's all it was. I done good, right? Some bits I got lucky, but still, I talked him around. Here's the thing, though. Oh, holy man God, ever since talking with that guy, something sat wrong with my spirit. Maybe we've missed a trick, you know? I just get this feeling somewhere along the way we're gonna fall into a trap. Well, my God, any idea what that's about?